will be better able to face the end of the world. Su can help her kill zombies, send her supplies, and even provide her with a place to live after the end of the world, but he cannot help her build a wall of her soul. After thinking about it, Su hesitated for a while, walked around Zhuoshirjia, who was breaking down and crying on the ground, went up the stairs, stood at Zhuoshirjia's door, looked down at Zhuoshirjia below, walked directly into the open security door, and glanced at Zhuoshirjia's house. Although this kind of home looks a bit old in decoration and is not very spacious and bright, it has a strong academic atmosphere. Zhuoshirjia's home is full of medical books, and there is a smell of Chinese medicine. Su took a casual look and found Zhuoshirjia's down jacket on the sofa. She took it out of the room, came to Zhuoshirjia's side, and put on the down jacket for Zhuoshirjia. The warm coat made Zhuoshirjia, who had been crying, raise her head. Her hair was disheveled as she looked at Su. She didn't care why Su was here. Her first words were, "I'd better go to the police station and turn myself in." "Okay, you can stay in there for a few days and get a feel for the atmosphere. I'll pick you up at the police station in a few days." Su nodded, helped Zhuoshirjia to stand up, picked up the umbrella from Zhuoshirjia's husband, and helped Zhuoshirjia, whose steps were weak, to walk down the stairs step by step. She held up the umbrella, took Zhuoshirjia to her car, and drove all the way to the farthest police station. Don't think that Su is delaying time. She really intends to send Zhuoshirjia to the police station, and the farthest and most remote one. It is not large in scale, there are few police officers, and there won't be many prisoners under guard. Moreover, it is just outside the Apple Villa district. Zhuoshirjia will surrender herself this afternoon. At most, she will be locked up in a small room, a single room, and her statement will be recorded tomorrow. Tomorrow is the end of the world. Su asked Zhuoshirjia to stay in the police station and not run around. She asked him to look at the suddenly changing world outside from the small house and then experience the world of zombie carnival. Then she would come to the police station to pick him up in a few days. Along the way, the night was sweeping in. Zhuoshirjia leaned on the passenger seat, with hair stuck to her face and a wrinkled-down jacket on her body. She looked half dead. She didn't say a word to Su, nor did she look carefully at where Su was sending her. For Zhuoshirjia now, she was worse than dead. There were several minor car accidents along the way. Some of the car owners were arguing, while others could only see two cars that collided, but no one got out of the car. Although some of the people who watched the car accident had called the police and called an ambulance, there have been more and more medical disputes, car accidents, and fights in recent days, and the police and doctors are simply too busy to handle it. They can only let the car owners solve the problems themselves, or not solve them at all. When she arrived at the police station, Su parked the car and watched Zhuoshirjia get out of the car with his head down and walked into the gate of the police station step by step. She waited for another hour or so, but Zhuoshirjia did not come out, and the police who came out looked normal in spirits. She thought that he had been settled inside, so she drove away with confidence. After returning to the villa, Su's father and mother couldn't help but scold her, saying that it was such bad weather, and a girl was still out all day without going home. Su listened obediently and didn't talk back. Only those who have lost something will know how to cherish the care of their parents. Because it was past dinner time when they returned to the villa, Su's mother scolded Su a few words and then urged her to go back to her room to take a hot bath and change into dry clothes. She went into the kitchen and started preparing food for Su. Su did as she was told, but after she took a bath and changed her clothes, she just walked down the stairs and saw Su's mother, who was supposed to be cooking in the kitchen, now sitting on the sofa with Su's father watching TV. On the TV, a real-time news was being broadcast. A female anchor was explaining the situation on a chaotic street, broadcasting it live. Behind her were several uncoordinated and slow-moving zombies, biting people everywhere. There was an uproar on the street. Some people fainted out of fright. Some stood there stunned. Some stared at the scene for a long time with trembling legs, and then ran away. Some people even stood by and took pictures and posted them on Weibo. This is too much. How can we not be able to escape at such a slow speed? Su stood on the stairs with a dry towel covering her head, looking at those who were bitten with some contempt. 80% of the world's people will become zombies, and the remaining 20% of humans will become zombies or mutants because of being bitten by zombies. The main reason is that they are defeated by their own fear. What is there to be afraid of? Just this level of zombies. Give Sue a bunch of them.
Ah!
Sue's mother suddenly screamed, and Sue's father, who was sitting on the sofa, was also frightened by the reporter on TV. The reporter was broadcasting a New Year's Eve party live, and suddenly noticed the chaos behind her. As soon as she turned around, a zombie pounced from the side of the camera, and in front of the national audience, it opened its mouth and bit the female reporter's neck. Bright red blood immediately spurted out, and all over the camera. Almost at the same time, Sue stood on the steps and listened carefully. In the distant sky, there were screams one after another. She smiled slightly, raised her hands, rubbed her wet hair, looked at her parents' panicked expressions, and said cheerfully, "Mom and Dad, welcome to the end of the world. Give me something to eat, and I'll take you out to fight monsters and level up." Under the bright, warm, and luxurious crystal chandelier, Sue's father and mother looked back at Sue like ignorant children. They ignored Sue and started a discussion. Father Sue comforted Mother Sue. "Don't worry, we haven't been going out much these days. This is just an isolated incident. The place broadcast on the news is 1,000,000 miles away from us." Sue's mother comforted Sue's father. "The public security in Xiangqing is still very good, and there will not be such a riot." No one paid any attention to Sue. She shrugged her shoulders in boredom, went into the kitchen, and started to eat. After a while, Sue's mother came in wearing slippers, and while helping Sue fry eggs, she reminded her, "It was just reported on the news that there is a new flu virus." The host urged everyone to stay in a safe place and not go out, waiting for the government to come to rescue. "There are actually people who have the leisure to broadcast the news?" Sue sneered a little and sat at the dining table with a bowl of noodles, waiting for her mother's eggs. She didn't care what the news said. Anyway, after Sue's father and mother fell asleep, she would take Xiao AI out to fight monsters alone and give the two elders a few days to accept the reality. At this time, Sue's father was still sitting on the sofa, feeling panic-stricken, grabbing his hair and reading the news on his mobile phone. It seemed that there were riots all over the country, even in Xiangqing. A search for news about Xiangqing on Weibo showed that similar biting incidents had occurred in the past few hours. He was a little unable to keep calm. After thinking about it, he found Yu's phone number from his mobile phone address book. He was a soldier, and a very capable one. As the pillar of the family, Sue's father naturally had to seek proper shelter for their family. "It has been a long time since I called Yu." I didn't expect that when Sue's father called, Yu answered the phone. I only heard him laughing on the other end of the phone. "Uncle, are you looking for me?" "Yeah, Xiaoya, you watch the news, right?" "What news?" "The news is full of incidents of thugs biting people, and the host just called on us to stay at home for the time being and wait for government support." "Is this true?" "This is an old person's phone. I can't see the news." Yu, who was pretending to be relaxed, became more serious after listening to Father Sue reading 2 news reports. He looked at the surroundings where there were no zombies left to kill, and then looked at his teammates who were so bored that they sat on the zombies and yawned. He told Father Sue, "It's okay, Uncle. Don't go out. I'll bring people to rescue you right away. Don't go out. We may need a few days. Tell Sue and Annie to be patient and don't panic. They must wait for us to arrive." After getting Sue's father's assurance, Yu hung up the phone call. Looking back, he saw that all his teammates who were originally laughing had stood up. They looked like wild wolves about to be released from a cage, with expressions on their faces that showed they were about to cry for joy. They had large backpacks on their backs, and in addition to knives and guns, they also held a number of bags in their hands, which contained all the supplies they had searched in these blocks. As a pre-apocalyptic death squad, they had more experience in fighting zombies than ordinary people. The key point was that if they stayed any longer, everything inside would be looted by them. Now the outside had become a zombie paradise, and they were not afraid of being infected. What were they still doing here? Yu was so angry that he stepped forward and kicked King Kong. King Kong floated in the wind, like a gust of wind, and landed lightly on the ground in the distance. He turned around and smiled obscenely, disgusting everyone, and said, "Hey, Yubapai, if you have the guts, come and chase me, your grandpa." As he spoke, King Kong floated towards the direction of the barbed wire. They followed behind King Kong's ace, circled 2 blocks, and finally puffed twice and got caught on the barbed wire. The barbed wire made a sizzling sound, and under the burning of the 2 flames, 2 big holes were slowly melted out. Yiyu, who was running behind King Kong, was not surprised at all. He jumped forward and ran out of one of the big holes nimbly, like a cheetah. King Kong had floated out of the barbed wire a long time ago and was now standing outside the fence, looking behind Yiyu. Behind him, it was very lively. The members of the Death Squad were like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each showing their magical powers. Their colorful skills were dazzling. The huge man jumped out of the big hole carrying various bags. Some of those bags were made of plastic, some were made of snakeskin, and their mood was as cheerful as the spring festival travelers going home for the new year, adding a different color to the sad night. That's right, it's just a simple siege. Even if the wire mesh is electrified, it couldn't trap these monkeys a long time ago. The reason they didn't go out before was because they were afraid that they would carry the Doomsday virus and infect the outside world. Now, what are they afraid of? Xiangqing Su's father and mother were worried all night. They sat in the living room watching TV, searching one channel after another. However, except for those TV stations that were automatically programmed to broadcast, many channels had snow spots, which meant that the TV station's signal was cut off. At the same time, there were more and more comments on the internet about the appearance of zombies. At 12 o'clock in the morning, the rain was getting heavier and heavier, and gray snowflakes gradually floated in the sky. Most people in the world finally couldn't stand the rain and snow and fainted on the ground. Su ate a bowl of noodles and returned to the room early. He absorbed the crystal core that he had pried out of by Lola's brain, cultivated his spirit for a while, and then went to bed to recuperate. The next morning, the rain stopped, but the gray snowflakes were still floating, and the color was getting darker and darker. From a distance, it seemed as if the whole world was shrouded in a gray world. That night, the earth was crying. Countless people, like Su's father and mother, were worried and couldn't sleep. More people began their journey of escape. Very few people were like Yiyu's Death Squad, who became more and more courageous as the battle went on. Su was the only one who slept soundly all night. Even in a relatively upscale suburban neighborhood like the Apple Villa district, one could still faintly hear screams coming one after another. Of course, in addition to Su's family, there were other people living in the Apple Villa district. Some of those people had turned into zombies, some had been bitten by zombies or had run away. Su was wearing slippers and still wearing comfortable and loose yoga clothes, with a long black down jacket on the outside. She gently opened the door and walked out. She saw her parents standing outside the floor-to-ceiling window in the living room, holding their hands, supporting each other, and looking out the window. Su was curious, so she walked down the stairs and leaned her head to look out the window. Outside the window is the small vegetable shed built by Su's father. The white plastic film is covered with a layer of dark gray snow. A little further away, a slow-moving zombie is wandering aimlessly, and on the left and right sides of the zombie stand 2 zombies in police uniforms. Maybe last night, someone in a certain family turned into a zombie prematurely, so the family called 2 policemen. As a result, the policemen fainted and turned into zombies just as they took the zombie out of the house. So, what should we do? What they say on the internet is true. The end of the world is coming. Mother Su leaned over and hugged Su's shoulders tightly, tears of fear streaming down her face. Father Su's expression was not very good either, but he still managed to show his family's demeanor and comfort Mother Su and Su. It's okay. Xiao Yi said he would come to save us. We should not go out these few days.
No one should go out.
But we have no food, and the water is polluted. If we drink the tap water, we will soon become zombies. Upon hearing that Su's father had arrived at the end of the world and still wanted to wait for Yiyu to rescue him, Su calmly announced this fact. In fact, She had stockpiled a lot of rice, oil, salt, and dry goods in the basement, and there was some frozen meat in the refrigerator, but she would not take these things out to Sue's father and mother now. As she said, everyone has to face the reality of the end of the world. No matter how shocked or hurt they are in their hearts, the wall of the soul must be built. Only when Sue's father and mother recognize the reality as soon as possible will they not pin their hopes on waiting for rescue. In the doomsday, she doesn't need her parents to go out and fight monsters to earn crystal cores, nor does she need them to risk their lives to search for supplies to protect her. However, not needing them to do these things does not mean that her parents can live in a turtle shell. She can give them comfort, but they cannot escape in this way. Water. As if she finally realized that this was a very serious problem, Sue's mother, who had not slept all night, looked very haggard. She looked at Sue's father in panic and cried, Sue is right. We will be out of water soon. Ever since they moved into this villa, they've been drinking water from a mineral water bucket. That mineral water bucket is filled with water in the kitchen every day. Sue's mother has always believed that someone delivered water to the villa every day. Now that the doomsday has come, there is no doubt that the water source must have been polluted. When they turn on the faucet, the water is grayish-white. No one brings them water. They will die of thirst in this villa before Yu comes to rescue them. Click. At this moment, the sound of the door lock of the villa was heard to open. Sue's father and mother trembled all over and turned their heads to look. They didn't know when Sue, who was originally standing beside them, was standing outside the door with a watermelon knife. Sue's mother immediately became anxious and wanted to drag Sue back without even changing her slippers. Sue's father followed closely behind. The three of them ran out of the warm villa one after another and entered this extremely cold doomsday. The zombie wandering outside the vegetable greenhouse had already moved towards the direction where Sue made the noise when he ran out of the villa gate without any concealment. At the same time, the two zombies in police uniforms on the left and right also moved. Sue thought the three of them were running too slowly, so he took the initiative to meet them with a machete. Come back, Sue, my daughter. Sue's mother behind her couldn't help but scream. She saw that the zombie in the front had moved in front of Sue and pounced on her, knocking her to the ground in the snow. Sue's mother's legs went limp with fear. However, this was of no use. Sue ran too fast and too far. The circle of green light around Sue's mother was too weak, and the range was too small. Sue's father came from behind, shouted loudly, and passed Sue's mother. He was anxious and regretted that he didn't have something in his hand to hit the zombies and attract their attention to himself. Just as he was thinking this, a stone appeared in Sue's father's hand. He didn't bother to think about where the stone came from. He raised his hand and threw it at the head of one of the police zombies. My aim was so bad that I missed the target. But this was enough. Sue, who was deliberately knocked to the ground by the zombies, had actually already held up a water mirror in front of her. The zombie was so close to her, but had no way to bite her, and was shouting. Sue was lying in the snow, observing Sue's father and mother carefully. Seeing that Sue's father and mother had been stimulated to have superpowers, she was delighted and stopped pretending to be a little white rabbit. She picked up the machete in her hand, raised her hand, and cut the zombie's head in half. Sue climbed up calmly and picked out the crystal core in the zombie's head in a moment. She turned her head and saw that a zombie was approaching her, and the other zombie was far away, but also moving towards her. Sue's father was holding a stone and desperately hitting the zombie that was farther away from her but closer to him. Sue decided to lure the monsters to play with her parents. She ran 2 steps away, stopped, and waited for the zombies to get closer. Seeing this, Sue's mother screamed and stood up, rushing towards the zombie in front of her. Sue's father did the same, holding a big stone in his hand, and rushed forward while shouting. He didn't care about the zombie that was about to be smashed to death by him, and smashed the head of the zombie closest to Sue. At this moment, Sue understood that Sue's father had Earth-related abilities, while Sue's mother had Wood-related abilities. Sue's father's Earth-related abilities had some attack capabilities, But Sue's mother's wood-related abilities had no offensive capabilities other than promoting the growth of flowers and plants. She decided to help Sue's mother, so she took the initiative to rush to the zombie that was almost killed by Sue's father and pounced forward at the same time as the zombie. She won, and she pounced the zombie to the ground. Sue sat on the zombie, holding its jaw tightly with one hand to prevent it from biting her. She pressed down the zombie's hands with her knees and shouted to Sue's mother, "Mom, take the knife and chop off its head." The situation was already so critical that Sue's mother had no time to be afraid for the sake of her daughter. She took the knife that Sue had deliberately handed over and chopped at the zombie's head frantically, shouting incoherently as she chopped, "Don't be afraid, Sue. Don't be afraid. Mom will protect you. Mom will protect you. My dear daughter, don't be afraid." She has become a superpower, so her strength is naturally much greater than when she was an ordinary person. In just a few strokes, the zombie's head was chopped into pieces. The battle on Sue's father's side was over. The 3 zombies were dealt with by the family of 3 in 10 minutes. Sue's mother sat in the snow, panting, holding a machete in her hand, her whole body trembling. Sue's father ran over, hugged Sue and Sue's mother, and sat in a pile of black and red flesh, blood, bones, and tender white brain matter, crying loudly.
Shushu felt a little guilty.
She had deliberately run out to lead the 3 zombies to provoke her parents. In fact, Sue's original intention was just to let her parents accept the reality as soon as possible, not to hide in the house and pin all their hopes on others. It was already the end of the world, and they were still waiting for others to save them. Others could save you once or twice, but would they save you for a lifetime? But she lay on Sue's father's shoulder, watching Sue's father's gray hair fluttering in the wind, and her heart trembled with pain. It was her unfilial behavior. Her parents were already at the age where they should enjoy a peaceful life, but she still forced her parents to fight for their lives with her. It was her incompetence as a daughter. "Dad, Mom, let's go back and never come out again. Let's wait for you to save us." Sue patted her parents on the back and helped them up from the snow. As soon as the 3 of them walked into the house, Sue's father paused and shook his head. Although his body was shaking, his expression was very determined. Daughter, we can't go back. Now that we are out, we have to find water before we go back. Otherwise, if Xiaoya doesn't come, we will die of thirst in the villa." Dad, Sue wanted to say more, but her mother wiped the tears from her face, raised her bloody fingers, and gently brushed away the hair on Sue's cheek. There were tears in her eyes, but her face was full of love. She said, "Be good, Sue, don't be afraid. Go home and wait for Mom and Dad first. They will come back when they find water. Be good. It's very cold outside. You have been in poor health since childhood. Go in first. If you are outside, your parents will always be thinking about protecting you and will not be able to do anything to deal with these monsters." The sadness in the hearts of Sue's father and mother, although so insignificant in such a big environment, is so great. Now that the world has changed, they can't just stand still and wait to die. If they die, it's just 2 lives. But their daughter Sue is still young, still as beautiful as a flower. She must live. In order for her to survive, they have to go out and take risks.
Shushu cried again, crying hard.
She loved her parents, but not as much as they loved her. She was always just a child in front of them, whether before or after the apocalypse. For a moment, she really wanted to reveal all her abilities so that her parents could hide under her wings and live out their days in ignorance in the apocalypse. But she held back, and reason overcame emotion. No matter what, now that Sue's father and mother were willing to step out of their turtle shells and digest, absorb, and accept this new world, it would be good for them. Although the process was sad, it would be beneficial for them to survive the end of the world in the future. Sue cried half seriously and was pushed upstairs by her father and mother and locked into the bedroom. The 2 elders looked at each other outside Sue's bedroom door, braved the wind and snow to walk out to find water, and Sue stayed in the bedroom reluctantly, watching in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. After her parents walked away for a distance, she jumped easily from the balcony of the bedroom, jumped silently into the vegetable greenhouse and followed them out. Passing by the 2 killed police zombies on the ground, she did not forget to pick out the crystal cores in their brains. Sue's father and mother are really working hard to become stronger. For the sake of their daughter Su, they have shown perseverance that is rare among ordinary people. Although there are not many zombies in the villa area, there are always a few. When they meet them, they don't run away, but bravely fight them. Su followed behind her parents, and when necessary, she would pop out a small water mirror like a small flying knife, secretly helping Sue's father and mother kill zombies. Then, after her parents left, she stepped forward to collect the crystal cores and the heads of the zombies on the ground. It was not until the 2 of them finally overcame their inner fears and gained some experience in killing these low-level zombies that Su saw her parents finally remembered to go to the villa to find water. In the Apple Villa district, not every villa is occupied, nor are they all empty. Sue's father and mother rang the doorbells of each house. If there was an answer, they would not go in. If there was no answer, Sue's father would pick up a stone, break the lock on the door, and go in to look for water. At this time, Su also entered the yard and waited outside the gate. After her parents rummaged through the house, she hid again and followed her parents to continue protecting them secretly. Sue's father and mother's hair were disheveled, their faces and hands were red from the cold, and their bodies were covered in blood. They were dirty, messy, and smelly, but the expressions on their faces were so happy, as if what they were holding in their hands were not supplies, but gold and silver treasures. Su felt like crying, and she felt so sad. She lowered her head and took some of the messy vegetables from her mother's arms, then turned and went into the kitchen. Just as her parents were moving the rest of the supplies into the kitchen, Su leaned on the dining table and said to her parents, "Mom and Dad, don't go looking for water. I have activated my water power." As she spoke, she took 2 glasses. She stepped forward and handed the glasses in her hand to her parents. Looking at their dry lips, they seemed reluctant to drink a sip of water after running around all day. With red eyes, she said, "I'll get some water for you. Wipe your body and change into clean clothes. When the end of the world comes, at first, there will still be supply of water, electricity, natural gas, and mobile phone signals, but slowly, these things will be shut down in no particular order, so there are many things to prepare such as gasoline, solar panels, etc." Su couldn't do it alone. The simplest thing was to put solar panels in her basement, but she didn't know how to install them, so she had to discuss it with her father. However, her father certainly wasn't in the mood to discuss this with Su right now. He and her mother hadn't recovered from the horrible world outside. But Su was not going to let his parents go out to look for supplies again. Killing zombies and feeling the atmosphere of the end of the world was something that Sue's father and mother only needed to experience for themselves. As for the real work of fighting monsters, earning crystal cores, and looking for supplies, Su had to do it. Superpower? Is this mine also a superpower? Father Su ignored what Su said about turning on the water for a bath. He bent down and put down the box of mineral water in his hand. He turned over his bloody and dirty palm and found a big stone in his hand. After he threw this stone away, it would appear in his hand again whenever he wanted. Father Su used the stone to smash the heads of many zombies today. Sue's mother has not yet discovered that she has awakened her with related supernatural powers. While she and Sue's father were looking for supplies today, they also discussed how the stone in Sue's father's hand came from. Both of them were a little confused, but still planned to go home and study it carefully after they found the supplies. Under the bright and warm lighting, Su nodded and decided to explain to her parents the classification of superpowers in the end times. She smiled and said, "This is a superpower. Dad, you and Mom can study it first. I'll go upstairs to find you some clean clothes and find a popular science post for you. I remember seeing it somewhere today." While saying this, Su had already quickly filled the kettle with water, placed the kettle on the gas stove, and started burning it. Without waiting for Sue's father and mother to reply, Su went upstairs and entered their bedroom. While finding clean clothes for them, she quickly typed on her mobile phone, temporarily finding a reliable popular science post about supernatural powers in the end times, and then sent it to Sue's father's text message. There are many such popular science posts on the internet. Years before the end of the world, some people wrote about the possibility of humans being stimulated to develop superpowers. Even if there are no popular science posts, you can still find some novels about humans being stimulated to develop superpowers. Su deliberately selected a passage similar to the future human superpower system, deleted some text, and sent it to his father. Originally, Su was thinking about waiting for her parents to finish watching the movie before comforting them. However, when she was lying on the balcony on the second floor and was blown by the heater, she started yawning. She was already in the early stages of pregnancy and was feeling all kinds of discomfort. She stayed awake today and didn't want to sleep. She ran around after her parents all day, and now even her eyelids were drooping. She lowered her head and saw her parents still holding their cell phones, sitting in the living room discussing things about superpowers. She didn't urge them to clean themselves up, but just told Mr. and Mrs. Su on the first floor that she had found clean clothes for them and put them on the bed, then went back to her room to sleep. As for when her parents took a shower or went to bed, Su didn't have the energy to care. Father Su, who stayed behind, had no idea how many questions he wanted to ask Su, including his special ability and Su's water special ability. When he heard that Su was going to sleep, Father Su got anxious. Just as he was about to ask Su to come down and explain things clearly, Mother Su pulled Father Su's sleeve and whispered, "Don't shout. Let my daughter have a good sleep." Today must have been a big shock for her. Besides, the text message said that after using up all the supernatural powers, people will feel tired. What Su's mother was holding was Su's father's cell phone. She pointed to the text message on it and slowly read it to Su's father. When Su's father heard it, he thought that Su had just asked them to run water and wipe their bodies. This must mean that her supernatural power had been used up, so it was normal for Su to want to sleep. The two elders did not suspect anything else. They went into the kitchen and turned off the gas stove. They found an empty bucket, washed their hands, faces, and feet casually, and then went back to their room to change clothes. While discussing the matter, they went to bed with peace of mind. She didn't know how many hours she slept. When Su woke up, it was already night. She forced her eyelids open and raised her wrist to see that the watch showed that it was only 3 o'clock in the morning. Su threw back the quilt and got up. Su smiled, raised her hand, and quietly turned on the heating for her parents. Perhaps because the end of the world was coming, Su's father and mother wanted to save some natural gas, so they turned off the heating that they always turned on before going to bed every night. Not only was their bedroom turned off, but the entire villa was as cold as an ice cave. Su frowned and turned on all the heating switches in the house. She went to the basement and tinkered with it for a long time. She took out several plastic basins of different sizes and placed them in the kitchen. Then she filled the basins with water. She was afraid that if she got up too late the next day, her mother would not have clean water to wash vegetables and cook. "I don't know if my parents will go out after dawn." Su looked at the time. Only an hour has passed, and it's still dark. After thinking about it, she went back to her room, changed into comfortable clothes, put on a down jacket, took the car keys, and drove out. Su narrowed her eyes, sat motionless in the car, and looked out the open steel door. A Volvo drove in at a very fast speed, with black and red bloodstains and internal organs hanging on the headlights. It sped past Su's car and drove into the villa area. The person who could make the gate of the villa area open automatically must be an owner in the community. This villa area does not belong to Su alone. It is his own ability that he was able to escape from the siege of zombies. If he wants to find a place to rest, Su cannot drive him out. She just glanced at the license plate of the Volvo. She always felt that the license plate number was indescribably familiar, but she couldn't remember it no matter how hard she tried.
Su stopped thinking about it.
She stepped on the accelerator, drove out of the gate of the villa area, and drove in the opposite direction of the Volvo. The person driving the car seems to be Su. In the Volvo, Xia Qingyan, who was sitting in the passenger seat, tugged at his dirty white down jacket, and turned his head to talk to Xia Yaoshi, who was driving. There were a lot of bloodstains on his down jacket, and his neck was bandaged. His hair was messy and a little greasy, and he looked very disheveled. Xia Yaoshi's brows furrowed. He slowed down the car and glanced at Xia Qingyan, as if he was deliberately waiting for Xia Qingyan to say something. However, Xia Yaoshi was a little disappointed. Apart from saying that one sentence, Xia Qingyan did not speak again, let alone ask him to reverse the car and catch up with the military jeep to see what was going on. The whole world has gone crazy. They have finally managed to get to the villa area in the suburbs after going through so much hardship. Seeing that there are fewer zombies around, Xia Qingyan is absolutely unwilling to go out again. I'll take you to my villa first, and then drive out to find Su Su. Xia Yaoshi stepped on the accelerator hard. He just wanted to send Xia Qingyan to the door of the villa as soon as possible because he just glanced at the person sitting in the jeep inadvertently, and that person really looked like Su Su. Xia Qingyan, who was sitting in the passenger seat, opened his lips but said nothing. He turned his head away, pretending not to hear what Xia Yaoshi said. Driving the car quickly into the garage, Xia Yaoshi pursed his lips tightly. Without saying a word, he led Xia Qingyan out of the car and into the villa. He walked hurriedly, went upstairs, and changed into a set of sportswear that he usually wore for exercise. The black velvet fabric was of exquisite quality, and it looked particularly energetic on an outstanding person like him. After changing his clothes, Xia Yaoshi took a deep breath, thought for a moment with a look of deep thought on his cold face, opened the safe under the bedroom closet, swept away the piles of cash inside, took out a gun and a box of bullets, then found a sports backpack and put the remaining boxes of bullets into the backpack. Then Xia Yaoshi ran downstairs. He walked to the door, opened the shoe cabinet, and found a pair of sports shoes suitable for running and jumping. While putting on his shoes, he looked back and frowned. He saw Xia Qingyan sitting on the sofa with a dazed expression on his face. His cousin was good in everything except that his psychological endurance was too poor. Xia Yaoshi ignored him. He went straight to the garage with a gun in his hand and a black sports backpack on his back, backed out of the garage, and went to find Su Su. Su Su, who was riding on the military jeep, had no idea that two people from the Xia family had come to the nest she had carefully arranged. One was her enemy, whom she must kill, and the other was the future #1 master of the apocalypse. At this moment, all her attention was focused on finding Zheshurjia as soon as possible. She walked out of the gate of the Apple Villa district and saw a few zombies swaying under the bright streetlights. Su Su felt itchy and rushed forward in her car, ramming and crushing them. She didn't even need to use her special powers or do it herself. She tortured the zombies into meat patties. Then Su Su got out of the car to pick up the crystal core and waited for a while, watching the zombies farther away slowly moving towards her. Su Su impatiently returned to the car, took a machete, rushed forward, and cut the zombies' heads in half one by one, like cutting watermelons. With a flip of the blade, she picked out the crystal core in their brains and held it in her hand. Looking at the time on her wrist, Su Su looked forward to the road again. Basically, she killed all the zombies wandering on this road, and it took no more than 10 minutes. She didn't want to go anywhere farther, because there was not enough time. She was afraid that if she was out for too long, her parents would find out that she was not sleeping in the room and would come out to look for her. After taking another look at the gas station next to the police station, Su Su walked back to her jeep and drove to the gas station. She wanted to fill up her jeep with gas, then find a few small oil bottles that could be put in the trunk and rob the supermarket in the gas station. There are a few zombies wandering around in the gas station, but there are no survivors. It is estimated that the survivors have either turned into zombies or ran away to some other place. The oil cans are placed in the warehouse next to the supermarket. There are a lot of them, barrels made of iron sheets, of different sizes and specifications. These are specially provided to customers in need. Su Su took 10 oil cans of about 10 liters each, laid the back seat of the jeep flat, filled up his own jeep with gas first, then carried the filled oil cans into the car one by one, and then returned to the supermarket to buy supplies. She was very careful when taking supplies. She only took what she needed and didn't take what she didn't need. There were 4 people in their family, so they didn't need many things. Su tried her best to take all the daily necessities. If some daily necessities were gone, she could go out and grab them later. Su didn't feel bad about the supplies that couldn't be taken. She just let them lie here. Maybe there would be survivors in the future. A bag of potato chips, a bag of cooked food, or a can of food might give a survivor the courage to live. So why bother to take on so much and collect everything she could see? She couldn't use them all. After working for an hour or so, Su finally drove the car fully loaded with supplies to the police station, leaving only the passenger seat for Zhuoshijia. Not long after her car left, Xia Yaoshi's Volvo followed. Xia Yaoshi in the car originally thought that he would encounter zombies after leaving the gate of the Apple Villa district. As a result, there were zombies along the way, but they were all lying on the ground. Some of them had become meat patties, and some had their brains split open with brains scattered all over the ground. He frowned, suppressed the nausea in his heart, and searched in the direction where the zombie bodies were scattered. Finally, he found the jeep in front of the police station near the Apple Villa area. Xia Yaoshi got out of the car without worry and slowly walked to the side of the jeep. He approached the driver's seat and saw Su, who had 2 pigtails, lying on the steering wheel. No one knew what was wrong with her, but she was motionless. The back of her neck was as white as jade, and so delicate that one would want to lift her up. Xia Yaoshi raised his hand and gently knocked on the car window. Su, who was lying on the steering wheel, suddenly raised her head, tilted her head with a vigilant look, and looked at Xia Yaoshi with wide eyes. "It's me." Seeing Su like this, Xia Yaoshi's stern face relaxed a little. This girl was like a rabbit before the end of the world, and she was still the same after the end of the world, but a rabbit also had such strong and vigilant eyes. What was revealed in her eyes was not fear and inability to accept the end of the world, but surprise at him who suddenly appeared. Su opened the car window, raised her neck slightly, exhaled the acid in her stomach, looked at Xia Yaoshi, and asked, "It's so late. Why are you out for a walk?" Her words made Xia Yaoshi laugh. It was already this late, and everyone on Earth was living in panic. Su was actually in the mood to make fun of him. She made Xia Yaoshi's heart, which had been tense all the time, suddenly relax. He asked, "What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell?" Su nodded and rubbed her stomach. Her pregnancy reaction was getting worse and worse. She had been driving for a while and felt like vomiting. Her stomach also felt very empty. "Go back. It's so late. Go back and have a good rest." Seeing that Su was wanting to, but didn't dare to because of the miserable dead zombies around her, Xia Yaoshi's tone softened a little. However, Su shook his head, opened the car door, took out a machete, and walked into the police station. "I have a friend in there." "What friend?" Xia Yaoshi reached out and grabbed Su's arm, frowning tightly. "Is it worth it for you to take such a big risk? And you came alone to save people?" What Xia Yaoshi didn't want to say was that Su's friend might have turned into a zombie by now. She was just a little girl, and she ran to save people without knowing the immensity of the world. Wasn't she afraid of turning into a zombie too? "It's very important." Shaking off Xia Yaoshi's hand, Su picked up the machete, took 2 quick steps, and opened the door of the police booth outside the police station. A zombie in a police uniform jumped out. When Xia Yaoshi saw it, he never expected that Su would actually open the door of the police booth. He shouted, but before he could rush to Su to save her, Su raised the machete and chopped off the zombie's head with one knife when the zombie jumped out. Dark red blood slowly flowed out from the round hole. Because the zombie's blood was no longer flowing, it was very sticky, just like dark red yogurt. After flowing a little, it solidified at the edge of the hole. The blood and flesh foam sprayed all over Su and Xia Yaoshi. At this moment, not only Su vomited, but Xia Yaoshi also bent over and vomited. Su vomited because her pregnancy reaction was too severe, and she felt uncomfortable just by smelling the bloody smell. Xia Yaoshi vomited purely because he was nauseated, but just after he finished vomiting, he saw Su's little white rabbit hopping after the zombie head that had rolled away. He chopped it down with a knife again, splitting the zombie's head open like cutting a watermelon, and picked out a crystal core that looked like a marble from it. Xia Yaoshi vomited again. Wow, this crystal core has a lot of energy. Susu's fingers were stained with black and red blood. She picked up the crystal core in her hand, looked at it against the street lamp, and said to herself, "Luckily I killed it, otherwise I would have to upgrade." Zombies will also upgrade. Not all zombies are so easy to kill, but not all zombies will upgrade. Zombie upgrades are just like the emergence of superpowers in humans. It depends on the probability. Putting away the crystal core in his hand, Susu turned around and opened the door of another police booth. When the zombies inside jumped out, he cut off their heads with a knife and collected the crystal cores. Xia Yaoshi was watching from behind Susu. As he watched, his eyes gradually deepened. A little white rabbit like Susu could quickly adapt to this sudden apocalypse in such a short time. Why couldn't he? Early yesterday morning, Xia Yaoshi was still in the hospital, dealing with the matter of Susu killing Bai Luoluo and Xia Qingyan being bitten by Bai Luoluo. Somehow, a large number of people around him suddenly fainted. When they stood up again, they turned into zombies. Or maybe the two of them ran fast, and those who didn't run out of the hospital never ran out again. Any normal person, facing such a sudden Hades, would feel fear and terror. Humans cannot just flee blindly. As the most intelligent creatures on Earth, if they cannot take up arms to fight back, they will die sooner or later. Quickly preparing himself mentally, Xia Yaoshi raised his gun and followed Susu into the police station. There were still no zombies on the short journey from the gate to the police station. Susu turned around and saw that Xia Yaoshi had followed him, so she frowned and asked, "I haven't asked you yet. Why are you here? When Qingyan and I entered the community, we saw you driving out. I was afraid that you didn't know that the world outside had changed and that you might be in danger, so I came out to look for you." Hearing this, Susu glanced at the back of Xia Yaoshi. Was Xia Qingyan with Xia Yaoshi? Was the Volvo that just entered the Apple Villa area Xia Yaoshi's? No wonder she felt that the license plate looked familiar, because it was Xia Yaoshi's car. Did Xia Qingyan not become a zombie after being bitten by Bai Luoluo, but had evolved into a superpower? Would Xia Qingyan be following behind now? It was just right, and she could find an opportunity to kill Xia Qingyan. But when she looked around, there was no trace of Xia Qingyan behind Xia Yaoshi, not even a shadow of a person. Susu couldn't help but look a little disappointed. Qingyan didn't come. He's waiting for you at home. Seeing the disappointed expression on Susu's face, Xia Yaoshi frowned slightly, but still explained Xia Qingyan's whereabouts. He thought that Susu would feel a little comforted by saying this, but unexpectedly Susu sneered and spat. "Wait for me? I thought he was afraid and didn't dare to come out. Don't beautify Xia Qingyan's image. Don't I know his character?" In the shadows, Xia Yaoshi stood upright with an imposing manner. He paused for a moment, looked at Susu's face, and asked with some disapproval, "Susu, how did you and Qingyan end up like this?" Susu said nothing. She glanced at Xia Yaoshi, turned around, and continued to walk forward. After 2 steps, she turned around again and looked at Xia Yaoshi, who was following behind her. "I don't need you to look for me, and you don't need to follow me anymore. Go back and protect Xia Qingyan."
Shushu.
Xia Yaoshi used a tough tone and some anger to say these 2 words. "Don't talk to me like that. I didn't provoke you. The end of the world. Now is the end of the world. In this world, how many people would risk their lives to come out to find someone in the end of the world? Xia Yaoshi doesn't owe Susu anything. What do you mean he doesn't need to look for someone? Let him go back to protect Xia Qingyan." This sarcastic tone has never appeared in Susu's tone before. Susu sneered and turned her head away, not wanting to talk to Xia Yaoshi anymore. In Xia Yaoshi's mind, Susu was still the doddering girl who had little common sense of life before the end of the world. He was the first elder of the Xia family who knew that Susu and Xia Qingyan were in love, and he was also her and Xia Qingyan's most staunch supporter. However, in Susu's mind, the help, the support, the kindness, the care and love like a brother have become very long ago. So long ago that Su Su now looks at Xia Yaoshi as if she is looking at a stranger. As long as Xia Yaoshi does not hurt her, she does not want to have a grudge with the future #1 master of the apocalypse. Behind Su Su, Xia Yaoshi was full of pride and really wanted to turn around and leave. He never cared about other people's faces. Before the end of the world, no one dared to look at him, let alone such a little white rabbit who had always respected him. Careful! Just as Su Su was about to turn the corner, 2 zombies suddenly jumped out from the front. Xia Yaoshi's heart jumped, and he didn't care about being arrogant anymore. He raised his gun and shot one of the zombies in the head. The sound of the gun was so loud that it almost shook the entire sky above their heads. Su Su chopped off the head of another zombie in front of him with a knife, picked out the crystal core, turned around to look at Xia Yaoshi, and laughed. "You actually have a gun? Guns are good things." After the end of the world, ordinary people, without special powers and physical strength, can only rely on hot weapons to protect themselves. Su Su also wanted to get a gun at the beginning and was thinking about whether to ask Yu for help, but Yu guarded his gun very tightly, and Su Su couldn't do it even if he wanted to. It is only the second day after the apocalypse, and Xia Yaoshi has already got a gun. This shows that Xia Yaoshi was not an ordinary businessman before the apocalypse. As she finished her words, a number of zombies staggered out from different directions deep inside the police station. These were zombies that heard the gunshots and ran over following the sound. This was happening inside the police station, not to mention outside the police station. The zombies from several nearby blocks were probably rushing here. Guns are good, but they also have a disadvantage. They make too much noise. Zombies move by sound and smell, and their eyesight is very poor. So, if you want to use a gun but don't want to attract zombies from far away, the best way is to install a silencer on the gun. Su Su raised the machete in her hand, took a deep breath, quickened her pace, and ran to the nearest zombies first. She killed them one by one with her sword, 1 crystal core for each one. Her movements were as smooth as flowing water, and she was unhurried, as if she was dancing. Xia Yaoshi behind her was also firing one shot after another. His marksmanship was good, and it was rare that he missed a zombie. After a while, the zombies that walked out of the police station were cleared out by Su Su and Xia Yaoshi. She looked up at the 3 houses on the 2 floors in front. When Su Su heard the sound, she knew that some zombies were still locked inside. "Zhuoshijia? If you're not dead, then make a sound." In the dark night with zombies howling, Su Su shouted loudly, but apart from the zombies' more intense responses to her, there was only the panting of Xia Yaoshi behind her. Su Su's pretty brows knuckled slightly, and she turned around on the spot. A bad premonition gradually rose in her heart. She picked up a bloody machete that was still stained with meat, walked to the door of her room, kicked it with her foot, and the 3 zombies inside rushed out one after another. Su Su turned around and slashed away, killing a zombie with 1 knife. After 3 consecutive slashes, Su Su looked at the 3 zombies on the ground with half of their heads cut off. None of them was Zhuoshijia. Xia Yaoshi in the yard was preparing himself mentally at this moment. He bent over and spit a few times, then squatted down, picked up the dog-leg knife on a zombie, and split the brain of a zombie. Xia Yaoshi spit a few more times, then stretched out his 10 fingers and rummaged through the brains, flesh, and bones. After a long time, he found a crystal core as big as a pomegranate and asked Su Su, who was kicking the door to kill the zombies, with disdain. "Su Su, what is this, do you know?" "Have no idea." Su Su picked up the crystal core in a zombie's brain and continued to chop down a zombie, without looking back. In his heart, he was somewhat impressed by what Xia Yaoshi had done. As a newcomer who had just experienced the apocalypse for 1 day, Xia Yaoshi had courage and insight that ordinary people could hardly match. No wonder he would become the #1 master in the apocalypse in the future. He could recognize the reality quickly in such a short time. He must be a master. "But I just saw you have been collecting this." There was a bright, pale full moon in the sky, but there was no silver light shining on the ground. Xia Yaoshi had a stern face with handsome lines and stared at Su Su intently. He made it clear that he did not believe what Su Su said. In front, Su walked to a tightly closed door, sighed, turned to look at Xia Yaoshi, who was standing in the yard, and said with a hint of sarcasm, "I really don't know that zombies have this in their brains. I knew it a little earlier than you. Every zombie has it in their brains. I think it must be something useful, so I collected it. How about I go back and study it first, and then tell you when I know the specific use of this thing?" Even if Su concealed the function of the crystal core, Xia Yaoshi would know it sooner or later. There are so many survivors, they just can't adapt to the fact that all their relatives and friends have turned into zombies in a short period of time. When they come to their senses, they will sooner or later counterattack the zombies. By then, the existence of the crystal core will not be a secret at all. Su would naturally speak if she was able to, but Xia Yaoshi was not that kind of person. In Su's mind, Xia Yaoshi stood on the side of Xia Qingyan, and Xia Qingyan was the number one on her kill list. So it was not clear whether Xia Yaoshi was an enemy or a friend. Why should she tell the effect of the crystal core to boost Xia Yaoshi's prestige? Moreover, Xia Yaoshi is not a stupid person. He is not as simple-minded and strong-limbed as you. If Su said that she knew this thing from the movie, that it was called a crystal core, and that the psychics could absorb the energy inside, she could deceive you with such words, but not Xia Yaoshi with such words. Xia Yaoshi stood there and stared at Su for a long time. In the end, he said nothing. He put away the crystal core that he had pulled out of the zombie's brain, picked up the gun, and started to help Su kick the door and kill the zombies. At the beginning, Xia Yaoshi couldn't grasp the rhythm of the zombies. Later, after he blew up several zombies' heads, he summed up some experience. That is, the fastest running speed of a zombie is equivalent to the normal brisk walking speed of an adult, and they only have one way to attack, which is to move in front of you and pounce forward. And it will only attack from the front, not from other directions. After this summary, Xia Yaoshi felt that zombies were too easy to kill. Anyone with a little athletic ability could react faster than these zombies, provided that they were not too afraid. The reason why the surviving humans were bitten by zombies was that they were so frightened that they were unable to move. Su, who was secretly watching Xia Yaoshi from the side, felt inferior in her heart. A master is a master. At this stage, when everyone needs to turn into bears, Xia Yaoshi used the shortest speed to quickly escape from the ranks of bears. She wished she could have half of Xia Yaoshi's psychological quality. Just as he was sighing, Xia Yaoshi had already kicked open the last door. He quickly hid beside the door and waited for a while. No zombies jumped out. He listened carefully and heard no zombies' hoarse sounds. He looked inside the dark door and turned back to shake his head at Su, who was standing behind him. No one's in there. No one was there. Zhuo Shijia was not locked up in any small room in this police station, nor did he turn into a zombie. So, he ran away during the chaos? Where did he run to? Su couldn't help but sigh. How could she be so stupid? She didn't expect that when the end of the world came, Zhuo Shijia, a living person with 2 legs, would seek escape by himself? Where should she go to find Zhuo Shijia now? If she can't find Zhuo Shijia, who will help her deliver Xiao AI? Who are you looking for? Who is Zhuo Shijia? Xia Yaoshi stood in front of Su, lowered his head, and asked again with full dignity. Su shook her head silently, turned around and walked into one of the rooms, turned on the light in the room, and looked at the various batons and knives hanging on the wall. She picked up a few knives at random, turned around and saw Xia Yaoshi coming in, then pointed at the remaining knives and started to divide the loot. "I only want these few. The rest are yours. I'm going back to sleep." Originally, Su was thinking about whether he could get a few guns from the police station while picking up Zhuo Shijia. However, it was obvious that the location of the armory was very hidden. In the legal society before the end of the world, the management of guns was also very strict. For example, the policemen on TV all had guns and fought gun battles with gangsters on the street, but those were plots that only existed in movies and TV dramas. In reality, if the police want to use guns, they have to apply for a report. When a group of people go out to perform a task, maybe only 1 or 2 of them are equipped with guns, and the rest are holding batons. The knives on the wall are just civilian-controlled knives confiscated by the police. So Su didn't have time to carefully find out where the police station's armory was hidden. If she didn't go back, the zombies would surround the police station. Surrounding the police station would be a small matter, but it would waste time. When her parents woke up and didn't find her, they would run out to look for her, which would be a big problem. She didn't want to play anymore, but Xie Yaoshe had no objection. In fact, his original purpose of coming out this time was to find Su and bring her back to the Apple Villa area. It's just that the route was a bit off, so he actually had some fun killing zombies. After killing so many zombies, Xie Yaoshe felt a little tired, so he picked up a knife from the wall and followed Su out of the police station. Because the zombies moved very slowly and Su had almost cleared the entire street, they didn't spend much time in the police station. So when they walked out of the police station, a large number of zombies were rushing to the end of a street. Xie Yaoshe's gunshots disappeared, and the zombies lost their target and were wandering around the end of the street. Su and Xie Yaoshe each got into their cars, opened the doors, and drove all the way back to the Apple Villa district without encountering any zombies. When they returned to the villa area, it was exactly 5 o'clock in the morning. Su drove the car into the garage and entered the warm villa in the dark. As soon as she walked into the living room, wow, the whole world suddenly became bright. Su's mother was standing at the stairs on the second floor with a stern face, while Su's father stood beside her, his hand still in the posture of turning on the crystal chandelier in the living room. Su looked up at the two elders somewhat awkwardly. Her nose was red from being frozen. Her body was covered in black and red blood, flesh and bone fragments. Her blood-stained hands were holding a machete and a dog-leg knife. The machete was stained with blood. From Su's appearance, one could tell where she had been doing so late at night. Mom and Dad, why did you get up so early? I woke up because of the heat. Mother Su walked down the stairs in a bad mood. She was only wearing a warm coat, but beads of sweat could still be seen on her forehead. She walked up to Su with a reproachful expression on her face, but she opened her mouth and said, "Go wash up, change your dirty clothes, and then come down, your father, and I have something to say to you." Ouch! She was woken up by the heat. She shouldn't have turned on the heating. It backfired. Su stuck out her tongue, put the dog-leg knife and watermelon knife on the coffee table, and quickly slipped upstairs. When she passed by Su's father, she smiled ingratiatingly, but she didn't dare to stay too long and immediately went into the bedroom to wash and change clothes. When he came down again, Su's father and mother had already sat on the sofa. Su's father was holding a dog-leg knife in his hand. After testing the weight, Su quickly said, "This knife is very good for chopping. It can cut heads like cutting grass. Dad, I have one, and you have one. You wish." Su's mother was furious when she heard Su say this. She bent down and slapped Su's hand that was reaching for the dog-leg knife. "It's so dangerous outside. You're a girl. You should stay at home. Your parents will protect you at the risk of their lives. Why run out and take the risk? No risks, that's good." Su told the truth that she hadn't had enough tonight yet. She could handle such a small situation. How could it be considered an adventure? Hearing Su's understatement, Su's mother couldn't help but doubt. Su came back covered in blood. Did he just roll around outside? Didn't he face the zombies head-on? Su smiled at her and yawned, but still picked up an apple on the coffee table and ate it. Su's mother was so worried that she just let it go, but she got angry again. "So, tell me what you did tonight?" Su, don't go out tomorrow. Dad wants to tell you something." Father Su stopped Mother Su from saying what she was about to say in time. He was not as emotional as Mother Su because Father Su could tell from Su's performance tonight that the child did not do anything dangerous tonight. Of course, things that are dangerous in the eyes of parents may not be dangerous at all in front of Su. He placed the dog-leg knife in his hand on the coffee table and looked at Su with a negotiating expression. "Dad now has some kind of earth-related ability and wants to raise our yard with stones. Okay, Dad, why don't you research how to get some clean soil so that Mom can grow more greenhouse vegetables? The world outside is already like this, and I think we'll be out of vegetables soon." Su looked at her father pitifully. He was worried about not being able to find a legitimate reason to keep his parents in the villa. So her father found a job for himself, which was to raise the yard. Now the whole villa was just surrounded by a 1-meter-high artistic iron fence. It would be absolutely no problem for zombies to come in. After the wall was raised high, ordinary zombies like this could not get in. Okay, let's do it this way. Tonight. Hey, you're tired too. Go get some sleep. Sitting on the sofa, Father Sue waved his hands weakly, watching Sue get up happily and quickly go upstairs, running faster than a rabbit. Seeing this, Mother Sue turned around and complained to Father Sue, "Why did you let her go like this? What else do you want?" Father Sue glanced at Mother Sue. "Don't you realize that she has become more opinionated now? She says one thing in front of you and another behind your back. Just let her be. We are all old. We are almost half dead after coming back from outside. What about her? She still has the mood to lie to you and sit here with you to chat. No one knows a daughter better than her mother. She came out of your belly. Don't say you haven't noticed the changes in her recently. She discovered it. As a mother, no matter how well Sue concealed it, how could Sue's mother not discover those details that were worthy of suspicion and consideration? Sue's mother had tears in her eyes. She covered her face and slumped into the sofa. But in her mind, no matter whether Sue had really changed or pretended to have changed, Sue had always been just a child who she felt had not grown up yet and would never grow up. If you continue to be so sentimental and don't change your rigid thinking, you might hinder the children. Looking at Sue's mother like this, Sue's father sighed and said nothing more. He let Sue's mother sit alone on the sofa and think carefully. He took a knife from the table, put on a coat, walked out of the living room, entered the yard, and then walked around the yard, thinking about where to start, and began to raise the wall. In the bedroom, when Sue opened her eyes again, she was awakened by her hunger. She lay on the edge of the bed and retched for a long time before she raised her hand to look at the watch on her wrist. It was already 3:30 in the afternoon. No wonder she was hungry. Sue climbed out of the bedroom weakly and stood on the second floor. She looked into the living room and found that her parents were not there. So she went downstairs, with her messy long hair, rubbing her stomach that was aching, and walked around with a pale face. Finally, she found her parents who were working in the vegetable greenhouse in the yard. "Mom, is there anything to eat? I'm so hungry." Mother Sue turned around when she heard this and was frightened by the ghost-like appearance of Sue. She covered her chest and squatted on the ground and cursed, "You rascal! I thought a zombie ran in. If you don't give me food, I'm going to turn into a zombie and eat human flesh." Anxiously stamping her feet, Sue urged her mother into the kitchen. Before her mother took off the white gloves she was wearing, Sue had already started to find the bowls and chopsticks on his own, then sat at the dining table, staring at her mother with a pair of wet eyes, ready to eat. Sue's mother laughed angrily, and while laughing, she turned around, started cooking, rubbing her eyes and crying. Her Sue, her good daughter, no matter how many things she was hiding from her, still needed her mother in her life. If she wasn't there as a mother, she wouldn't be able to have a hot meal. "Mom, where did you get the bok choy?" Sue, who was lying on the dining table waiting for food, looked at her mother's back with a lifeless face. She saw a bowl of fresh and tender Shanghai greens next to her mother. At this time of year, in this world, some people can't even drink a sip of water, but her mother actually made a bowl of fresh Shanghai greens. Could it be that she found it in the villa yesterday? The refrigerator of the family that was searched had a good preservation effect. "I planted them this morning. I found that all the vegetables in our greenhouse have grown. It's really fast. I just planted the seeds 5 or 6 days ago." Sue's mother put some oil in the pot and started to stir-fry the meat. She added some green peppers to the meat. The aroma made Sue's mouth water. Not to mention, the green peppers were also grown by Sue's mother. Now, although Sue's awakened with type ability cannot attack, she is an expert in growing vegetables. After the end of the world, Sue has seen such with type ability users before. They specialize in how to grow vegetables quickly in the base, and the development direction of their abilities is also to increase the output of grain and vegetables. This is good, Su thought, biting her chopsticks. In the short term, their family of 4 will not have to worry about food. She can cross off vegetables from the list of materials she robs. In the long term, Sue's mother's vegetable planting level will be higher in the future, and the output of grain and vegetables will also increase. The food that their family of 4 cannot finish can be exchanged for crystal cores. This is very good, very good. Mom, next time you plant vegetables, just recite in your heart to make these vegetables grow taller and bigger. Maybe you have also awakened your superpowers? That's why these vegetables grow so fast.
He.
Mother Sue turned around and smiled at Su while cooking. Do you think people with special abilities are like vegetables on the street? They can awaken whenever they want? Oh, we already have you in our family with water-related special abilities, your dad with earth-related special abilities, and I, your mom, will awaken a wood-related special ability. All 3 of us in the family are special abilities. Doesn't this make sense? So what? Awakening of superpowers isn't something new. Su disagreed with her mother's statement. Indeed, at the beginning of the apocalypse, among the surviving humans, less than 1% had awakened superpowers. This 1% all relied on the natural evolution of the environment. However, 10 years later, the Qinglong base, which focused on studying the evolution of human superpowers, launched a doomsday vaccine. Every 6-month-old baby born in the Qinglong base will be recommended to receive this doomsday vaccine. An 80% chance of babies who have been injected with the doomsday vaccine will evolve into mutants. Of course, there is also a 20% chance of failing to evolve and then being directly infected and becoming zombies. The 80% chance is much higher than the 1% chance of natural evolution. The only difference is whether parents are willing to let their children gamble the remaining 20%. At that time, most ordinary parents were willing because Qinglong Base also launched a welfare policy. As long as the baby evolved into a superpower, Qinglong Base would be responsible for raising and educating the baby and also provide a bag of rice and 15 kilograms of vegetables to the baby's parents every month. This benefit is tempting enough, at least for ordinary people after the end of the world. It is a very generous condition. Ordinary men who once did not dare to have children are said to be scrambling to find women to get pregnant and have children, just to try their luck with that 80% chance. In fact, from a big-picture perspective, this is just a means for the Qinglong Base to control the psychics. Most of the first generation of naturally evolved psychics who are still able to survive 10 years after the apocalypse have reached level 4, and some have even reached level 5 or above. The greater their abilities, the less they want to be easily restrained. The authorities want to control the psychics, so they came up with a way to start with the babies. What is responsible for raising and teaching mean? It is nothing more than unified management, unified learning, and instilling ideas such as Qinglong Base is my home. We all love it, and long live the leader of the base. Su didn't know whether this project was successful in the end, because she died 12 years after the end of the world. Anyway, the year she died, it was said that the 3 major bases, Baihu, Xuanwu, and Zhuke, were all imitating the Qinglong Base and recruiting child soldiers with superpowers. So the 3 members of the family are all superpowers. This may be strange in the eyes of others, but in Su's eyes, it is not strange at all. The children born by superpowers are mostly superpowers. This is called heredity. 2 superpowers of the same type will give birth to children with the same superpower after awakening. At the same time, the superpowers will awaken very early, perhaps as early as the next day after birth. For example, if there are 2 people with water abilities, the chance of conception will be very high, and the child born will most likely be an water ability user, and will be a water ability user from the neonatal stage. But if the 2 types of superpowers are naturally incompatible, it will be more difficult to have children, and the children born will be more likely to die. However, if the children can survive and awaken superpowers, their abilities will be more terrifying. Studies have shown that among couples who are born with incompatible superpowers, only 10% can successfully conceive and give birth, and the survival rate of children born is only 5%. Of these 5% of children who survive, They can awaken their superpowers, but it takes a long time for them to awaken their superpowers, some for several years, and some for perhaps 10 or 20 years. The types of superpowers that are awakened are also varied, and they may not necessarily be inherited from their parents or relatives, but 100% of them have amazing abilities. Of course, these are all research results, and it will take time to verify whether this is really the case. Thinking of this, Su couldn't help but think of Yiyu. She hadn't received a call from Yiyu for a long time. Should she take the initiative to call Yiyu and ask if he had awakened his superpowers? What kind of superpowers? Xiao AI hadn't awakened her superpowers when she was 2 years old. Was Yiyu's superpower type incompatible with her water superpowers? A little bit of incompatibility is okay, but it must not be a fire superpower. Water and fire are the most incompatible. She didn't want Xiao AI to grow up to be 20 or 30 years old and still not be able to awaken superpowers. However, once the superpowers are awakened, I'm afraid the entire base will not be able to control that naughty monkey. People who can make water and fire compatible are not ordinary people. By the way, didn't my dad say last night that he wanted to reinforce the wall? Su turned her head away, too frightened by the future she imagined to think about it any further. She stretched her neck and looked out the kitchen window. The wall was still so low, but her father was squatting beside the greenhouse, researching something. Her mother turned around and served Su a bowl of rice from the rice cooker, explaining, "Your father found that he can only conjure up rocks as big as cantaloupe, so we don't have cement and can't raise the wall. The stones placed on the wall need to be fixed with steel bars, concrete, or something, otherwise they will fall down when pushed by the zombies." The largest stone that Su's father can make now is about the size of a cantaloupe, and he can't make large stone slabs. So he was a little discouraged and simply turned around to help Su's mother build a greenhouse. Now that the greenhouse is completed, I feel a sense of accomplishment. Su smiled calmly, eating the food in the bowl, and said vaguely, "It's okay, it's just cement. I'll go back to sleep and get some for you when I wake up." Look at her expression. Didn't she have enough fun last night? Is she planning to go out again tonight? Mother Su sat opposite Su and was about to say something to stop her. However, at this moment, the doorbell of their house suddenly rang. Mother Su looked up and exchanged a glance with Su. Who would come in this world? Could it be that Yiyu came to save them? Father Su also heard the doorbell. He stood up, put down a handful of soil in his hand, clapped his hands, and went into the kitchen. He then went into the living room from the kitchen, opened the door, and entered the front yard. Outside the small, low iron gate in the front yard, which was only big enough for one car, stood a young man wearing a white down jacket, blue jeans, and a pair of camel-colored hiking shoes. When he saw Su's father coming out of the villa, he raised his chin, raised his hand to brush away some of the hair covering his eyes, and asked politely, "Hello, does Su live here?" "Shushu? Who are you? What do you want from Su?" "I'm her boyfriend. My name is Xie. Uncle, you should know me.
I'm Susu's high school classmate.
We've met several times before." Following Xie words, Father Su's brows furrowed unconsciously. Su took the rice bowl and walked out of the villa while eating. She stood at the gate of the villa, looking at Xie outside the yard, and said to Father Su loudly, "Dad, don't open the door for him. He is not a good person." Father Su was not prepared to open the door for Xie. He glanced at Xie with his eyes slanted and said in a strange tone, "Oh, hearing about it is not as good as meeting it in person. That's it. If there is nothing else, you can leave now." Speaking of Xie, Su's father and mother actually had some impression of him. When Su was in high school, there was indeed a rumor about her having an affair with this boy, but Su went home on time every day, maintained excellent grades, and her cell phone bills never worried her father and mother, and her mood was not affected by it. As parents, they were not unopen-minded people, so they didn't care about the rumor. Later, Su went to college. She heard that Xie was in the same college as Su. Su's father and mother would occasionally talk about this boy in private. They both agreed that Su was only a freshman, and everything had to wait until Su graduated. So they had no intention of meeting Xie Qingyan. Why did she have a bad impression of Xie Qingyan later? It was because of the drugging of Su Su by Luoluo. According to the investigation and interviews of Su's parents, Luoluo fell in love with Xie Qingyan and then hated and envied Su Su. In their university, there were more girls who liked Xie Qingyan than Luoluo. But Xie Qingyan had never harshly rejected any girl with bad intentions. He gave everyone the impression of being gentle, generous, and helpful. Even when he was with Su Su, he was never stingy in providing help to other girls, such as repairing their computers, getting them meals, and bringing them water when they were sick. Although Su's father and mother were both ordinary people, they did not live a wealthy life, so they looked at many things more realistically and straightforwardly. For example, as long as they heard Su Su's classmates praising and liking Xie Qingyan in unison, they felt that Su Su was not suitable to be with such a male god. If they had to be together, it would be like the time when Luoluo drugged Su Su. Su Su's life would be surrounded by endless jealousy and frame-ups by women. And it was very obvious that Xie Qingyan did not have the ability to protect Su Su, otherwise Luoluo's drugging would not have been successful. Seeing that Father Su was about to turn around and go back to the house, Xie Qingyan, who was standing outside the iron gate, became anxious. He hurriedly picked up a bag of mineral water from his feet and said to Father Su and Su Su to take credit, "Uncle, Su Su, I'm here to bring you some water. I just found out this morning that you guys also fled into this villa area. You see, I risked my life to come here early in the morning. Hey, a small bag of mineral water." Su Su finished the last bite of rice and looked at the bag of mineral water in Xie Qingyan's hand with a fake smile. A bottle of mineral water of that size would probably only sell for 1 yuan before the end of the world. There were only about 3 or 4 bottles in the plastic bag, and one of the bottles was dangling. It was a bottle of mineral water that was half drunk. Xie Qingyan was giving away such a small amount of water. Father Su turned around and glanced at the water in Xie Qingyan's hand. Maybe other families really needed such a mouthful of water, but their family had so much water that they couldn't use it up, and they could even use it for bathing. Father Su suddenly remembered that he had to build a reservoir for this villa, so that Su Su could directly put clean water into the reservoir. The pipes of the reservoir would be connected to the water pipes of the villa, so that the 3 of them would not have to carry mineral water buckets for eating, washing vegetables, and taking a bath, and could directly let water out from the faucet. Su's father was persuaded and took action. He no longer cared about Xie Qingyan's eager eyes standing at the door and ran straight into the villa to discuss the feasibility of building a reservoir with Su's mother. Su Su looked at Xie Qingyan with a sarcastic expression, folded her arms, put on a down jacket, and walked out of the villa gate. "Su Su, you built a vegetable greenhouse. Are you growing vegetables?" Xie Qingyan, standing outside the iron gate, looked at the vegetable greenhouse next to the villa with curiosity. When he saw Su Su approaching, he hurriedly handed over the plastic bottle of mineral water in his hand. Without waiting for Su Su to reply, he said affectionately, "Here, Su Su, there have been too many misunderstandings between us during this period. Let me in, and let's have a good talk." Su Su refused to take the water from Xie Qingyan and stood in front of Xie Qingyan, looking at him with dark eyes, trying to see what kind of supernatural power this guy had awakened. After a while, Su Su understood that there was a weak water energy floating around Xie Qingyan, which was also the awakening of the water's supernatural power, but the fluctuation of the energy was so weak that Xie Qingyan himself might not even notice it. The improvement of superpowers will lead to the advancement of the 5 senses. The higher the level of superpowers, the sharper the 5 senses. Humans don't need to practice deliberately. Once the superpowers are awakened, the 5 senses will naturally be improved. Therefore, 10 years after the end of the world, many people will not need the help of supernatural level detection equipment. Just by using the 5 senses to see and feel, they will be able to roughly know in their minds who the supernatural person is, what type of supernatural power they have, and the level of their supernatural power. It is a wonderful state that can only be understood but not described. Perhaps because she was reborn, although Su Su now only has a 2nd-level water ability, her 5 senses are sharper than this level. This is not surprising. She was reborn with her memories. In her memories, she was a 5th-level ice ability user. It is normal for her 5 senses to be slightly stronger than ordinary people. Su was not going to remind Xie Qingyan that he had awakened his water power. She said in an unusually cold tone, "Didn't I say that the next time I see you, it will be the day you die?" Su, stop it, I was wrong. Go back. After thinking about it, Su still didn't take action. It was easy to kill Xie Qingyan, but if she killed Xie Qingyan in the Apple Villa district, she was too lazy to deal with Xie Qingyan's body. Besides, Xie Qingyan came to see her today, and Xie Yaoshi would know it. Xie Yaoshi would definitely investigate later. If Su remembered correctly, Xie Qingyan and Xie Yaoshi had a good relationship. If she killed Xie Qingyan for no reason, Xie Yaoshi would definitely not let her go. Xie Yaoshi's abilities were still average, so Su could kill him together with him. However, she had always sought revenge and repaid favors. If she was simply afraid that Xie Yaoshi would avenge Xie Qingyan, she would take the initiative and strangle Xie Yaoshi, the #1 master of the apocalypse, in the cradle. This behavior was somewhat inconsistent with her style. However, Xie Qingyan must die. He must die. Only those who have become mothers can understand the feeling of being a mother, raising a child for 100 years, worrying for 99. In Xie Qingyan's mind, Xiao Ai is the greatest shame in his life, reminding him all the time that Su has put a huge green hat on him. As a man, how could he allow Xiao Ai to exist? Xie Qingyan is a danger to Xiao Ai. Su can't ignore this hidden danger, especially now that Xie Qingyan has stimulated the water power. How much power he will have in the future is not yet known. If someone like Xie Qingyan can cover the sky with one hand in the future, can he still give Xiao Ai a chance to live? Anyway, this person is now in the Apple Villa district. We can find an opportunity for Xie Qingyan to leave the Apple Villa district and get rid of him without anyone noticing. Having made up her mind, Su ignored Xie Qingyan's howling behind her. She walked back to the villa, went upstairs, closed the door, took out the crystal core she had harvested last night, and concentrated on absorbing energy and cultivating her spirit. Xie Qingyan, who was left outside the iron gate by her, called Su's name for a long time. Not only did Su not come out to see him, even Su's father and mother were unwilling to pay attention to him. After a while, Xie Qingyan felt a little bored, so he picked up the plastic bag of mineral water and slowly walked towards the villa where Xie Yaoshi lived. He really loved Su, to the point that he didn't care whether Su's body was perfect or not. But why did Su become a completely different person after she woke up from sleeping with Yu? She hated not only by Luo, but also him? Xie Qingyan's heart ached a little. The falling snow along the way made a crunching sound under his feet. Xie Qingyan turned around and looked at the Su family villa behind the pine tree. He touched his heart. What should he do? Even if Su treated him like this, he still wanted to be with Su. Halfway through the journey, Xie Qingyan's cell phone rang. He lowered his head and took out the phone from his down jacket pocket. It was a girl named Fei, so he picked up the phone. Before he could say anything, Fei cried on the other end of the phone. "Class monitor, where are you? We encountered such a terrible thing. There are monsters everywhere. Our teachers and classmates have all turned into monsters. Since yesterday, we have been running and running."
Where are you?
Boo, don't cry. Fei, where are you now? I'm in the Apple Villa area, with my cousin. It's safe here, there are no zombies. Can you come over? Really? Are you safe there? We haven't eaten for several days, and we haven't even had a sip of water. Water? Xie Qingyan looked down at the plastic bag in his hand. It's okay. I have some water here, although not much. We'll think of something to eat later. Come over here first. You can bring over any survivors. Fei is a girl in Xie Qingyan's class and one of his true fans. She's usually cute and lively. She listens to Xie Qingyan and never hides her admiration for him. So Xie Qingyan felt that since he was safe and there was not a single zombie in the Apple Villa area, he had no reason not to provide this safe shelter to his classmates. In this crazy era, humans need to stick together to keep warm. Fei Fei, on the other end, was naturally overjoyed by Xie Qingyan's words and was also full of gratitude. Xie Qingyan felt very touched, and after listening to Fei Fei's numerous thanks, the anger and humiliation he felt because of Su Su's family slowly dissipated. With a light-hearted mood, as if he had regained some of the confidence he had before the end of the world, he hung up Fei Fei's phone and slowly walked back to Xie Yaosher's villa. When he entered, he just saw Xie Yaosher coming down from upstairs with a tired face, looking for water to drink in the refrigerator. Xie Qingyan couldn't tell what his mentality was. He put the plastic bag in his hand into the shoe cabinet and asked with concern, "Brother, you haven't rested enough yet?" After returning last night, Xie Yaosher seemed to have used up all his strength and could not even muster the energy to speak. However, he still told Xie Qingyan that Su Su had been found and lived in building so and so. Then he climbed upstairs and fell asleep. He has been slept until now. Xie Qingyan had been sleeping since he entered the villa yesterday and slept until this morning. After getting up, he ate most of the bread in Xie Yaosher's refrigerator. Then he walked out of the villa area with a trembling heart, took away all the water in the villa, and prepared to ask for a smile from Su Su. "I remember there were a few bottles of water in the refrigerator." Xie Yaosher's throat was very dry, and he felt a little dizzy. He vaguely felt that he had a fever, so he wanted to get up from the bed and drink some water, but where was the water in the refrigerator? Where did it go? "Oh, I went to see Su Su today and gave her the water." "Brother, there are 3 people in their family, including 2 elderly people. Su Su's health has not been good." "I'm sorry." Seeing Xie Yaosher's cracked lips, Xie Qingyan regretted stuffing the water into the shoe cabinet. But if he took it out now, how could he explain to Xie Yaosher his behavior when he entered the door? So after telling a lie, you have to use N lies to cover it up. This is really true. Xie Yaosher turned around, frowned and glanced at Xie Qingyan. Without saying anything, he took the car keys and prepared to go out. Behind him, Xie Qingyan couldn't help but ask with guilt, "Brother, you want to go out? But it's very dangerous outside. I'm going to go out and find some supplies, otherwise we're both going to die of hunger and thirst in here." "Then, big brother, can you bring back more supplies?" Xie Qingyan scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Seeing Xie Yaosher turned around and looked at him suspiciously, Xie Qingyan immediately said, "It's like this, Su Su and the others also need supplies, right?" "Qingyan." Xie Yaosher closed his eyes, pursed his cracked lips, turned his head, squatted on the ground to put on his shoes. He didn't want to say anything, but now he couldn't help it. Su Su is not my girlfriend. Su Su is not his girlfriend, and is not his responsibility. Xie Yaosher was willing to take the risk to go out and look for Su Su last night because he still regarded Su Su as the little sister he knew. However, after what happened last night, Xie Yaosher clearly felt that Su Su had changed. She no longer relied on anyone and was braver than he could imagine and became more beautiful. Of course, Xie Yaosher didn't think that Su Su had changed, and he didn't want to deal with Su Su anymore in the future. He said this simply to target Xie Qingyan. In the end times full of crises, Xie Qingyan left his girlfriend alone and asked him, as the big brother, to find one. His girlfriend had no supplies to survive, but asked him, as the big brother, to go out and find supplies. After saying that, Xie Yaosher stood up and dragged his dizzy head into the garage. He got in the car and tidied up the backpack in the car. In the backpack were his gun and bullets, but there were not many bullets left. The gun and bullets were a collection he got by chance. He was not a person who used to use guns, and when the bullets ran out, he didn't know where to get more. Just when he was worried, he turned his head and saw the dog-leg knife he took out from the police station last night. It was now lying on his passenger seat. Under the light of the roof light, the blade had a sharp edge that could not be ignored. Xie Yaosher smiled unconsciously, remembering the image of Su Su chopping zombies with a machete. He threw away his backpack, picked up the machete, and muttered to himself, "You really have won." After saying that, Xie Yaosher drove out, and soon after he left, the night darkened, and another day passed. That day, Su Su stayed in the room to absorb crystal cores and condense her spirit. Because her spirit could only carry a limited amount of energy, Every time she absorbed a crystal core, she had to drive her spirit to release energy. The effective way to release energy was to drain water. All the bottles and jars in the house and the bathtubs in several rooms were filled with water. But this was not enough for Su to release herself. She was in good spirits and didn't want to be sleepy, so she wanted to cherish her time and cultivate her spirit for a while longer. So Su had no choice but to stay in the bedroom and play with her water mirror in the air. With her current abilities, plus her 12 years of experience in fighting monsters in the apocalypse, she can completely handle it with a water mirror. The difference is that what she used before was an ice mirror, which was solid, while the water mirror was liquid. Since it was liquid water, Su could make it into whatever shape she wanted. She sat cross-legged on the bed, holding a crystal core as big as a pomegranate seed in one hand and covering the crystal core with the other hand. She looked at the transparent water mirror floating in the air and slowly let the clear water begin to flow. Then it got faster and faster, and gradually, the water mirror turned into a whirlpool. A 2-year-old child made of water walked out of the whirlpool. The child had 2 pigtails on his head. He jumped and stepped on the water stairs and ran to Su. She smiled, raised one hand, touched her belly, then lowered her head and kissed the little love made of water in front of her. Little love was lost in her previous life, and Su couldn't bear the pain of missing her, so she always played such a game with herself, making a little love out of ice, and then pretending to deceive herself that little love was still by her side. It's just that the little love made of ice can't move, but the little love made of water can run and jump, which is much easier. After being with the little love made of water for a while, Su's heart moved, and her eyes swept the car keys on the bedside table. The waterman sitting on her knees jumped off the bed, ran to the bedside, and picked up the car keys. This is all possible? Su was a little surprised at her delicate operation. She thought about it, drove the waterman to grow taller, walked to the other bedside table, opened the drawer, and took out a watermelon knife wrapped in white paper. This watermelon knife was brand new and had never been used. Looking at the waterman in front of him, who was about 1 meter tall, holding the car keys in his left hand and a machete in his right hand, Su carved out a trajectory in his mind and let the waterman perform a chop, cut, and pick movement. Very good. The machete was wielded vigorously in the waterman's hand, and its strength was no less than that of an adult man. However, Su looked down at the pile of crystal cores in his palm. He didn't know when all these crystal cores turned into powder. Such delicate operation consumed a lot of energy, but the essence in Su's body could carry a lot more energy without realizing it. It was already late at night. Su dismissed the watermen, got up, changed her clothes, took her machete and car keys, and prepared to go out to get some crystal cores and find some cement for her father. As soon as she walked out of the bedroom door, she saw Father and Mother Su lying on the coffee table in the living room, drawing with paper and pen. Su smiled, walked down the stairs and joked, "Dad, Mom, look at the time now, you two are still drawing?" Su, you haven't slept yet?" Father Su rubbed his tired and sore eyes and straightened up. Mother Su also yawned, dropped the pen in her hand, stood up, and was about to say that she was going to bed, then looked at Su and suddenly asked vigilantly, "It's almost 12 o'clock. You are dressed so neatly. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to get cement for my dad." Walking directly to the coffee table, Su answered lightly, as if she didn't notice her mother's vigilant eyes at all. She stood beside the coffee table, and as soon as her eyes fell on her parents' paintings, she couldn't help but look carefully at the paintings that Su's father and mother had just drawn. It was not a random doodle by a child, but a villa attack and defense map drawn on a piece of draft paper. There was a wall on the map, a trench outside the wall, and a large reservoir on the top of the villa. 2 greenhouses were planned in the garden for growing vegetables and grain. "Hey, Dad, are you planning to turn this house into a bunker?" Su sat on the sofa and looked at the draft paper carefully. A 3-meter wall, 240 bags of cement, and 8 barrels of construction glue. "Dad, we have to drive a truck out to grab cement. We saw a shop selling construction materials across from the community a few days ago. There should be some cement in there." Father Sue responded that because these villa areas are all fully decorated villas, they are all sold to rich people. Rich people love to tinker. Obviously, the villas have been decorated very well, but they are not satisfied. If they are not satisfied, they have to tear them down and redecorate them according to their own preferences. In addition, there are several newly built buildings nearby that are about to be opened, and there are several construction sites a little further away. If you search carefully, you should be able to find cement, and you may even be able to find a truck if you want. Originally, Sue's father took Sue's mother and planned to go to bed after drawing the defense map. Then the next morning, the two elders would go out to find cement. But Sue unexpectedly came out at this time, neatly dressed, with a machete in her hand. Sue's mother was so worried that she couldn't sleep no matter what. "You're Dad, and I can handle these things. Don't you want to sleep? It's already 12 o'clock.
Go to sleep.
Mom will make you something delicious tomorrow morning." As the saying goes, raising a child for 100 years requires constant worry for 99 years. The way Sue's mother looked at Sue at this moment was as if she was looking at a child who had just learned to walk. No matter how she prepared herself mentally, it was impossible for Sue's mother to watch Sue go out to take risks. As a mother, would she just sit at home and wave her handkerchief to see him off? "I'm full of sleep." Sue giggled and put her arm around her mother's neck. "You and Dad have prepared the defense map for the villa. Let's go out for a drive as a family of 4. Sue's mother opened her mouth. She was planning to go out with Sue's father to get cement, but she didn't bring Sue with her. But if they didn't bring Sue, the naughty child would definitely run away by himself. So should they take Sue out to take risks, or let the naughty child run away by himself? "Okay, let's go out and get the cement now." Father Sue hesitated for a moment and nodded, but there is a prerequisite. Sue, you can't take risks. Your parents are in front of you to take the risk. You just need to sit in the car. Okay. Faced with Sue's father and mother's concession, Sue naturally agreed obediently. With a smile on her face, she took the car keys and drove to the garage. By the way, she moved the supplies that had filled the whole car last night back to the room. Just as Sue's father and mother returned to the bedroom to get dressed and get ready, Sue had already moved all the supplies. During this time, neither Sue's father nor mother noticed that there was anything wrong with Sue's words. A family of 4. She meant a family of 4. When Sue's father and mother changed their clothes and came out of the villa, Sue had already parked the car outside the iron gate. The street lights in the villa area were flickering, and it was obvious that there was a lack of power supply. This was a high-end villa area, and the streetlights inside were all powered by solar panels. But maybe it was because the weather had been gloomy recently, and there was not enough sunshine? Or some other reason. Anyway, some lights were on, and some were off, setting off the surrounding environment, which was almost like a horror movie. Sue drove with her parents in such a dark night, all the way to the outside of the villa area. Because Xia Yaoshe fired the gun yesterday, a few zombies roamed over from the neighboring blocks on the street that had been cleared by Sue. However, there were very few zombies, and there were many new zombie corpses on the ground. Sue, sitting in the driver's seat, took a casual look and roughly understood that someone had killed zombies on the street. There are several stores selling building materials opposite the Apple Villa district. Under the guidance of his father, Sue drove the car to a building materials store. Several zombies nearby surrounded him. Without waiting for his father's instructions, Sue unbuckled his seat belt, opened the car door, and jumped out with a machete in hand.
Sure.
"Come back." Sue's mother screamed in fear and was about to open the car door to save Sue, but she saw Sue's flowing body, with her arms and legs spread out slowly and comfortably. In a short while, she had completely wiped out the zombies that surrounded her. In such a short time, Father Sue didn't even have time to get out of the car. He sat in the car, watching his daughter dancing surrounded by zombies through the glass window. Father Sue pursed his lips, sighed, raised his hand to rub his gray hair, looked back at the stunned Mother Sue, and said, "Look, I told you we don't have to worry. This time, we are a burden to her. Mom and Dad, come out, it's okay." Sue, who was outside the car, holding a knife and a crystal core in her hand, walked into an open building materials store. She raised her hand to turn on the switch beside the door, and the whole store instantly became bright. Su looked up and saw that there were still a lot of things in the store, but there were bloodstains everywhere. There were no people or zombies. There was a pen and an account book on the counter at the door. I guess the boss was attacked by zombies while he was counting accounts? Or he turned into a zombie and attacked the customers. Sue's father got out of the car and helped Sue's trembling mother into the building materials store. They endured the nausea and rummaged around. On the second floor of the store, they found 10 bags of cement and a bucket of construction glue. Small shops like this are all small businesses. Generally, people who buy construction materials in these shops are those who are renovating their homes and are temporarily short of some construction materials, maybe a few nails or a little cement, so these shops cannot stock any goods. Sue's father came downstairs carrying a bag of cement, while Sue's mother was looking for some food in the store. Sue casually glanced at the boss's counter, took out a bunch of car keys from it, and then glanced at the pickup truck outside the store. She walked to the front of the pickup truck, tried casually, and the door of the pickup truck was opened. "Dad, Mom, we have a truck to haul cement." Sue sat in the driver's seat and happily shouted to her parents in the store. She thought that every owner of a building materials store would be equipped with a pickup truck for transporting goods. Otherwise, it would be extremely inconvenient to deliver goods to the store on weekdays. However, when she shouted, several zombies moved. Zombies are more active at night than during the day, and their hearing and sense of smell are also more sensitive than during the day. However, the zombies coming from a distance were too slow. Sue couldn't wait and jumped off the pickup truck to greet the zombies that were coming slowly. In about 2 minutes, Sue killed those zombies. Holding the newly acquired bloody crystal core in his hand, he rubbed his uncooperative stomach, leaned against the tree trunk, and retched a few times. Suddenly, he heard a slight noise in his ears, which made Sue alert. She straightened up and listened carefully to the sound, which seemed to come from a small supermarket opposite. There was no sound of zombies, so it should not be a zombie, but it did not sound like the sound of normal human activities. Sue lifted her feet in flat boots and took 2 steps towards the open, small supermarket. The tiny sounds became more and more obvious. There was also a faint smell of blood in the air, but it was covered by the smell of durian. She walked quietly into the supermarket, turned on the light switch on the wall, followed the sound, picked up the knife, and went over there. She walked around a shelf and saw a pair of men's feet in sneakers. Going upstairs, she saw Xia Yaoshi holding his neck, sitting on the shelf with a pale face. Next to him were several broken durians. It seemed that he was injured, and in order to prevent his blood from being smelled by the zombies, he deliberately broke a few durians and placed them beside him. His head moved slightly, and some potato chip bags behind him made a crunching sound. Xia Yaoshi's eyes were dark as he watched Sue approaching. He raised his head and looked at Sue walking towards him without saying a word. Looking at the current situation, Xia Yaoshi was obviously bitten by a zombie. He will either become a zombie or a mutant, and the latter is very likely. Looking at Xia Yaoshi's expression as if he was waiting to die, he is obviously unwilling to die like this, but he maintains a submissive attitude, which is very tragic. "Go ahead, don't hesitate." After a long time, Xia Yaoshi closed his eyes and spoke in a hoarse voice. He thought that Sue was reluctant to cut because Sue remembered that he was an acquaintance and couldn't bear to do it. Sue smiled, a mysterious smile, took back the knife in her hand, and said lightly, "I see you still have the strength to speak, and your thinking is quite clear. You may not turn into a zombie, so I won't kill you now. I will come back in an hour. If you turn into a zombie, I will naturally not show mercy. If you don't, remember, you owe me a life. If I provoke you in the future, remember my favor of not killing you today." After saying that, Sue turned around, walked out of the supermarket, picked up a bag of melon seeds from the shelf, and stood between the supermarket and the building material store. While cracking melon seeds, he protected Sue's father and mother. When he saw the zombies wandering towards the supermarket, he went forward to take care of them as well. She ran back and forth to kill zombies, and from time to time, she went into the next door clothing stores to buy some clothes, and went into the supermarket to buy some grain and oil. Occasionally, she stopped to eat melon seeds in a leisurely manner, which made Sue's father and mother, who were busy moving cement onto the pickup truck, stare with wide eyes. Xia Yaoshi, who could turn around and see Su through the shelves in the supermarket, also had a slightly moved face, which was always resolute. Although this was a girl with a bad mouth, and she said on the surface that she didn't care about his life or death, she still stood guard outside the supermarket for him. Any zombies that smelled blood and came over were all blocked outside by Su. At that moment, Xia Yaoshi felt that Su's back had become much softer. The zombies on this street kept coming and coming. Su looked at the time on her watch. An hour had passed. Her parents had gone to the building materials store next door to do some work. She went back to look at Xia Yaoshi, but there was still no sign of him turning into a zombie. So she squatted down and asked, "We are leaving. Do you want to come with us or stay here?" Of course, I had to go with Su and the others. If I didn't leave, would I stay here and feed the zombies?
She smiled at Su unhappily.
Because of the change in his attitude towards Su, there was a hint of doting in his smile that he himself didn't even notice. He loosened his hand on her neck, looked down, and tilted his neck. Apart from some soreness, he didn't feel much pain from the bite from the zombie. Holding onto the shelf, Xia Yaoshi managed to get up. Seeing that he was moving too slowly, Su couldn't help but reach out to his arm, ready to help him up, but suddenly, she felt her hand go numb. She was horrified and quickly retracted her hand, took a step back, and looked at Xia Yaoshi. Xia Yaoshi looked at Su with a puzzled look on his face. He seemed to feel that something was wrong with his body. He stood up straight and spread his hands. Then a purple electric spark suddenly popped out. Suddenly, in front of Su's surprised eyes, Xia Yaoshi clenched his fists, and the purple electric sparks floating on his palms were retracted into his fists. He loosened his hands again, and after several times, he seemed to have finally found a way to control the electric sparks on his palms. He looked up and smiled at Su. "What is this?" He asked Su, but seeing Su's surprised look, he didn't expect Su to answer. Instead, he calmed himself down, walked out of the supermarket, and swung the electric sparks on his palm at the zombies wandering over not far away. The zombie's head was surrounded by a ball of purple electric sparks, and his body, which was moving over, obviously stopped where it was. Su, who was standing behind Xia Yaoshi and watching, was more and more surprised. Xia Yaoshi made the zombies stand still because his electric sparks did not have such strong attack power. He could only temporarily paralyze the zombies' brain nerves. In time, as Xia Yaoshi became stronger and stronger, the zombies would be reduced to ashes. This #1 master of the apocalypse is worthy of being the #1 master of the apocalypse. Others awaken the 5 basic superpowers first, but he directly awakens the lightning superpower. He did the same thing, and then dealt with several subsequent zombies. Then he slowly squatted down, split open the zombie's head, and picked up the crystal core inside. This man's growth rate is even faster than Su, the reborn person. Su, what are you looking at? Let's go.
Sua espada drove a pickup truck to sua seda.
Su's mother was sitting in the passenger seat. The back bed of the pickup truck was filled with cement, construction glue, and some commonly used materials for building houses. Su's mother, who was sitting in the passenger seat, stuck her head out of the car window, holding back her retching, and glanced at Xia Yaoshi, who was squatting on the ground digging crystal cores out of a pile of brains. She then looked at Su, who also retched a few times, and Su's mother urged, "Hurry up, Su, go drive your own car. The zombies will be here again soon."
Good.
Su nodded, turned around and jogged to her Jeep, opened the door and got in, then drove the car to Xia Yaoshi's side, frowned and asked him, "Are you leaving or are you going to play for a while?" She saw that Xia Yaoshi seemed to be more energetic at this moment than in the supermarket. Maybe he had just discovered that he had awakened his special powers and was killing zombies to the point of forgetting himself. But Su was tired and sleepy and wanted to sleep. She was also very hungry. She was a pregnant woman now, and the pregnancy reaction in her body was getting worse. After going out for a few hours, she had to go back and rest for a day. "I'll drive back by myself in a while." Xia Yaoshe approached Su Su's jeep, saw Su Su yawning, and smiled slightly on his cold face. "You go back and have a rest. If you need any supplies, I'll bring them to you tomorrow." "No, we have enough food at home. Even if there is not enough food, we don't want yours." Su Su raised her eyebrows, glanced at Xia Yaoshe, stepped on the accelerator, and followed her parents' pickup truck into the gate of the villa area. After returning to the villa, it was already a little late. Su Su and her parents went back to the room to change the dirty clothes. Su's mother urged her to eat a bowl of noodles, and then she went to bed. This time, she slept until 3 in the afternoon. Su Su was awakened by hunger. After getting up, she grabbed the toilet and vomited all over the place. She even vomited out all the acid in her stomach. It was so uncomfortable, and it became even more uncomfortable. She grabbed the sink with her skinny claws and stood up weakly. She put some clean water in the sink and washed the dirt from the corners of her mouth while looking at herself in the mirror. Her long hair was messy, and she was obviously listless. Her face was pale. The only advantage of her face was that her skin had improved. It was delicate, smooth, and elastic, like a boiled egg. As she looked at it, Su Su leaned over the sink and vomited again. By the time she had finally dressed up, an hour or so had passed. Su Su walked out of the bedroom and went to the kitchen. She saw that the rice cooker was still plugged in. When she opened it, she saw a pot full of rice. It must be that Su's mother sympathized with her for being too tired from killing zombies last night, so she left some rice for her to eat when she got up. Su Su touched her hungry stomach, took out a clean bowl and chopsticks, filled herself with a bowl of rice, and sat alone at the dining table. She ate her meal bite by bite without any side dishes. After finishing one bowl, Su Su felt unsatisfied, so she stood up and got another bowl. She had only eaten half of the second bowl when her mother, with mud all over her hands and 2 sleeves on her arms, walked into the kitchen from the backyard. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she saw Su Su eating a bowl of white rice vigorously. She laughed in anger. "You woke up in the afternoon and didn't even say a word when you woke up. You're eating white rice here by yourself. Is it delicious?" "Tasty." Su Su puffed up her cheeks and nodded seriously. She was extremely hungry, and the hungrier she got, the more she wanted to, so now everything she ate seemed delicious. At the kitchen door, Su's mother turned around unhappily and slammed the door to the backyard. The weather was really too cold. Although it was no longer raining, after staying outside for a while, one would feel like falling into an ice cave. It was still warmer inside the villa. The floor heating in this villa had never been disconnected since the end of the world, so it was naturally warm. Su's mother turned around and took off the dirty sleeves on her arms and began to pick vegetables and stir-fry meat, preparing to make stir-fried water chestnut and meat for Su Su. She didn't know if it was Su's mother's illusion, but she always felt that Su Su's appetite had increased a little in the past few days. As long as Su Su was awake, she could see that her mouth never stopped, either vomiting or eating. Those zombies outside are really disgusting. Not only Su Su vomits, but Su's mother and father also, every time they see them. After vomiting out all the contents in their stomachs, they always have to find something to fill them up. Su's father and mother can understand Su Su's behavior these days. "By the way, Su Su, when you were asleep, the guy named Xie Qingyan came again. This time he brought us a lot of biscuits and mineral water, but your dad and I didn't want any." While cooking, Su's mother chatted with Su Su. "Where did Xie Qingyan get the biscuits and water?" "Xie Yaoshe must have worked hard to get them back from the supermarket yesterday. This Xie Qingyan really knows how to borrow flowers to offer to Buddha. I just don't know how Xie Yaoshe feels about supporting Xie Qingyan like this." In fact, Xie Yaoshe was not as distressed as Su Su thought for the biscuits and mineral water that Xie Qingyan took out. He had long thought of bringing supplies for Su Su's family of 3, so he filled the back seat and trunk of his Volvo full before driving back to the villa. Faced with enough food to last for many days, Xia Qingyan cried with joy and begged Xia Yaoshi to let him give some to Su Su. Xia Yaoshi had no objection. Although he was thinking about Su Su's words and her saying that their family had enough food, Xia Qingyan's words were very sincere, so Xia Yaoshi nodded in agreement generously. Then he went back to his room to sleep and let Xia Qingyan deal with the truckload of supplies. At that time, Xia Qingyan specially picked up some sandwich cookies that Su Su liked to eat and gave them to her, but was stopped by Su's father and mother again, and was rejected. Just as Su Su was curled up in the bathroom vomiting, Xia Qingyan turned around and walked back from Su Su's house in frustration. Before he had taken a few steps, he received a call from Fei Fei, saying that she had arrived at the gate of the Apple Villa area, but there were a lot of zombies around, so she asked him to hurry to the gate to open the door for them. Carrying biscuits and water, Xia Qingyan ran to Xia Yaoshi's villa, found the electronic key that Xia Yaoshi used to open the gate of the villa, and drove Xia Yaoshi's Volvo towards the gate. When he arrived at the gate, Xia Qingyan opened the door of the Apple community from a distance and took a look. Haha, Fei Fei was here, but she came in a bus. The bus was full of survivors, most of whom were their classmates, as well as many alumni of Hunan University and some people from society who had been picked up from nowhere. Then Xia Qingyan was dumbfounded. No one on the bus got off to clean up the zombies. They all hid in the bus waiting for Xia Qingyan to rescue them. The windows and doors were closed tightly. Their bus was driving along with a string of zombies following behind it. When it reached the streets of the Apple Villa district, the number of zombies suddenly increased. They finally arrived at the gate of the Villa district and waited for Xia Qingyan for so long, so more and more zombies surrounded them. By the time Xia Qingyan opened the door, the number of zombies had reached a dense and terrifying level. Xia Qingyan's first reaction was naturally to close the gate of the Apple Villa district, but it was too late. Fei Fei and the others' bus had already rushed in, and many zombies surrounding it had already run in, not to mention those following behind the bus and those clinging to the bus. The bus squeezed in, and the gate of the villa area closed the moment the bus came in. However, there were so many hungry zombies following the bus that the gate of the Apple Villa area was squeezed so hard that it was difficult to close. In the end, several zombies were stuck, leaving a large gap for the zombies to crawl in and out freely. Originally, there were few people living in this villa area. On the first day of the apocalypse, the zombies wandering outside were completely wiped out by Su's father and mother and Su Su, who secretly protected them. There were only a few zombies left trapped in the villa. As long as no one was free to open the door of the villa, it was basically impossible for them to escape. Looking at the zombies surging in front of him, Xia Qingyan had no time to care whether the door of the villa was closed or not. He randomly pressed the close button on the electronic key several times, turned around and ran towards Xia Yaoshi's villa. It was better to enter the villa than stay outside. The bus full of survivors followed Xia Yaoshi and ran for its life. Su Su was still eating meat. Her mother cooked a dish for her and started preparing dinner. Her father was still in the yard, working with the cement he brought back last night, planning to start reinforcing the wall today. Suddenly, this peaceful world was broken by a group of people shouting for help, and a group of zombies entered the villa area and screamed everywhere. Mother Su stopped cooking, Father Su ran into the house, and Su Su was still eating leisurely. Su Su, did you hear any noise? Considering Su Su's performance last night, Su's mother was completely relieved about Su Su. When faced with such an emergency, she no longer asked Su's father, but turned to Su Su for protection. Su's father did the same. Seeing Su Su still eating, he asked, Su Su, why are you so noisy all of a sudden? Easy. Su Su was full and put down her bowl and chopsticks. Some survivors came in and let the zombies in. This kind of thing happens often in the end times. Who is so wicked? Mother Su was furious, cursing the person who let the zombies in. She turned around anxiously and looked at Su Su. What should we do now? It's okay, Mom, you continue cooking. Dad, close the doors and windows tightly. I'll go out and take a look. Su Su directed her parents in an orderly manner, went upstairs to get a black short down jacket and put it on, then went downstairs with a machete in her hand. Just as she stood at the entrance and was about to change her shoes, Sue's father and mother both stopped in the living room, looking at her with worried expressions on their faces, as if they were watching their daughter going to die and they were powerless to do anything. Such tragic and sad feelings made Sue raise her head and smile. "Don't worry, it's just a small matter. It's okay. You guys stay at home. Close the doors and windows and don't go out. Don't drag me down." Sue was absolutely not lying. In the 12 years since the end of the world, she had been to no less than 8 bases and experienced hundreds of zombie sieges. It was just a few zombies running into the villa area.
How many could there be?
Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands? Haha, Sue didn't take it seriously at all.
Good. Aha.
Fearing that Sue was worried about them, Sue's father and mother nodded quickly. They couldn't drag Sue down, and taking care of themselves at this moment was the greatest support for Sue. Sue was quite satisfied with their obedience. She put on her flat boots, picked up a machete, picked up a chair, opened the door, and walked out on the thin snow. As soon as she went out, the cold air poured in. Sue shrank her neck, dragged the chair out of the yard, found a place with a good view, sat down, and waited for the zombies to come over. Because Xia Yaosher's villa was not far from Sue's villa, there were only about 5 or 6 villas in between. However, the direction Xia Qingyan drove away was towards Xia Yaosher, and the bus that attracted most of the zombies was also following Xia Qingyan, so Sue sat on the chair and waited for a long time, but no zombie wandered to her. Sue was a little bored, so she stood up and walked forward on her own initiative. After turning around a villa, she finally saw the shadows of zombies. She happily rushed over with a knife in hand, killing each zombie with her knife, one crystal core at a time. In her heart, she couldn't help but feel grateful to the person who let the zombies in, as he was delivering the crystal cores to her doorstep. But Xia Qingyan, who was thanked by Sue, was not as happy as Sue. He opened the iron gate of Xia Yaosher's villa in panic and drove the car into the villa garage. He did not even think of turning back to close the door. He just closed the garage door and hid in the car trembling. He did not dare to get out of the car, letting the bus behind him run around the villa area. Originally, the bus also wanted to follow Xia Qingyan into Xia Yaosher's villa, but the driver had some brains. He found that there was only a circle of iron fences around Xia Yaosher's villa, and the yard was not big enough to accommodate their bus. If the bus was driven into the yard, the zombies would still besiege it. What was the difference between them being inside the villa area and outside? So the bus could only avoid Xia Yaosher's villa and drive around in the villa area, trying to get rid of the zombies hanging on the roof and walls. Those zombies did not disappoint. The zombies dispersed along the way when the bus drove, and the zombies that continued to move up began to surround Xia Yaosher's villa. It's already this bad. How can Xia Yaosher not wake up? He opened the bedroom curtains in extreme anger and looked around his villa. There were already quite a few zombies entering the yard. Xia Qingyan was a man with a front hand but no back hand. The iron gate of the villa yard was not closed, and some zombies had already climbed up the steps of the gate. Xia Yaosher hurried downstairs, picked up the dog-leg knife at the entrance, opened the door, threw out a burst of electric sparks, and killed the zombies at the door in a few moves. Then he slipped back in and blocked the rest of the zombies who heard the noise outside the door. After he adjusted his breathing, he continued the previous actions, opening the door, throwing electric sparks, killing zombies, and closing the door. Relying on this defensive method, Xia Yaosher began to clear the zombies around his villa in an orderly manner amidst chaos. Sue, who was not far away, was much faster than Xia Yaosher. She kept killing zombies and finally arrived in front of Xia Yaosher's villa. According to the distribution and number of zombies, the closer she got to Xia Yaosher's villa, the more zombies there were. While Xia Yaosher in the house occasionally observed the zombies outside through the window, he saw Sue rushing over. That slender figure was gracefully stretching among the zombies. Xia Yaosher's slightly fluctuating heart suddenly felt like he had taken a reassurance pill. He no longer hid, opened the door, and started killing zombies with Sue on the left and right. The two of them were invincible and gradually merged together. From Su Su's perspective, there were only a few zombies around Xia Yaoshi's villa, about a dozen or so, but more zombies came one after another. They walked very slowly from the gate of the community to Xia Yaoshi's villa, and a few of them wandered to other places on the way, which gave the feeling of an endless stream of zombies. Su Su looked at Xia Yaoshi's villa area and could not find any trace of Xia Qingyan. That guy was always afraid of death, and he must be hiding in Xia Yaoshi's villa and dared not come out. She thought about it and thought of a way to get Xia Yaoshi away and then come back to kill Xia Qingyan in the chaos. So Su Su planned to walk to another path where several zombies were walking. When Xia Yaoshi saw this, he followed behind Su Su and asked with a frown, "Aren't you going to the front door? There must be more zombies over there than inside." "No, you go ahead. I'll go find my parents first to make sure they are safe." Su Su found an excuse. Xia Yaoshi nodded and parted ways with Su Su at the entrance of the path, then turned and headed for the gate. Maybe it was because Xia Qingyan still pressed the electronic key to close the gate of the Apple Villa district, or maybe it was because the Apple Villa district was indeed a high-end community, and the gate made by the developer was quite sturdy. When Xia Yaoshi fought his way to the main gate, the gate to the Apple Villa district was already more than half closed, leaving only a small opening with a few zombies stuck on it, struggling with their hands and feet. One by one, the zombies crawled in through the small opening, like a queue. Seeing the scene, Xia Yaoshi sneered and raised his hand, holding a handful of crystal cores. No one knew how he had researched this, but a genius like him would always think of things that others could not think of. Xia Yaoshi threw away the dog-leg knife in his other hand, and the purple electric flowers in his palm formed a large net, which netted the zombies stuck at the gate. A moment later, the zombies that were struggling against the gate were reduced to ashes under the cover of such a powerful electric net. The gate that could not be closed was closed instantly. Xia Yaoshi seemed to be extremely tired. He knelt on one knee on the ground, spat out a mouthful of blood, and smiled sadly. It was his brother's fault for letting the zombies in. No matter what the cost, he, Xia Yaoshi, had to fill this gap for Xia Qingyan. Now the gap was filled, but his body was overloaded with absorbing and releasing energy. The meridians in his body seemed to be torn into small pieces, and the pain was unbearable. However, even so, Xia Yaoshi could not rest. He barely picked up the dog-leg knife on the ground, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, raised his hand, and killed the zombies that pounced on him. The gate of the villa area was closed, but a lot of zombies were let in. He originally wanted to use lightning skills, but when he activated the supernatural power in his body, his whole body felt like being bitten by countless ants, and the pain was excruciating. So Xia Yaoshi just kept holding on at the gate of the villa area. While inside the villa area, Su Su was having so much fun killing zombies that she actually killed all the way back to her own villa. After cleaning up a few zombies that were about to touch her villa, she turned around and went to Xia Yaoshi's home. After clearing out a few zombies that had just wandered into Xia Yaoshi's yard, Su Su kicked open the door of Xia Yaoshi's villa and looked around, but couldn't find Xia Qingyan. She was a little annoyed. At this critical moment, Xia Yaoshi could come back at any time. Where was Xia Qingyan hiding? Xia Qingyan? Xia Qingyan, come out. I'm here to save you. The zombies outside were gradually attracted to Su Su. She shouted Xia Qingyan's name, while cleaning up the zombies that came over on their own initiative. She waited until there were no more zombies to kill. But Xia Qingyan didn't come out yet. Su Su was a little disappointed. Could it be that this guy had changed his temper and ran out to kill zombies as well? Bang bang bang, just as Su Su was wondering, the garage door slowly rolled up, revealing a silver Volvo inside. That was Xia Yaoshi's car. The garage door was open for a long time. Xia Qingyan in the car observed the situation in the yard. It seemed that there were really no zombies. Then he carefully opened the door and got out of the car. It turned out that he was hiding in the garage. Su Su watched Xia Qingyan get out of the car. His eyes lit up, and he stepped forward with a knife in hand. Without waiting for Xia Qingyan to speak, he grabbed his arm and dragged Xia Qingyan outside. Su Su's plan was very good. It's so dangerous outside. As Xia Qingyan was shouting, The bus that had gone far away came back. Perhaps it had gotten rid of the zombies, and someone dared to open the window. Then a woman was heard leaning against the window, screaming at Su. Su, what are you doing? Let go of the squad leader. Tilting her head, Su looked back at the sound. She didn't recognize the girl who was shouting at all. Maybe they were classmates? Or alumni? Otherwise, how would she know her name? She didn't care how the girl shouted. She dragged Xie Yan towards the gate of the community, looking for zombies along the way. There were so many zombies just now, but now none of them were left. She killed them all. Su cursed herself for killing so quickly.
Why?
At this moment, Xie Yaoshe came back, wearing a black sportswear. His face, hands, and body were all covered with blood and meat. His face was a little pale, but he didn't show any abnormality. He held a dog-leg knife and walked towards Su and Xie Yan step by step.
Shushuwishtan.
She didn't expect Xie Yaoshe to come back so quickly, so she stopped walking forward, still holding Xie Yan, who was struggling. Behind them, Fei, carrying a big bag, caught up with them breathlessly, hugged Xie Yan's arm, and roared at Su. You crazy woman! You are simply a lunatic. You killed Bai Luoluo, and now you want to kill the squad leader? Fei, big brother Xie Yan's other hand was held tightly by Su, but this did not prevent him from showing his aggrieved and guilty expression to everyone. At this time, Xie Yaoshe had already walked in front of the three people, heard Fei's words, and looked at Su in silence. Su just sneered and shook off Xie Yan's hand as if she was disgusted with it. She looked at Xie Yaoshe, then turned around to look at the bus that had stopped behind her. Many survivors got off the bus one after another. They all looked like refugees, carrying large and small bags on their backs, waiting on the spot. Xie Yaoshe, how do you open the gate to the villa area? There was no need for Xie Yaoshe to answer. Looking at Fei's posture, one could tell that it was Xie Yan who opened the door. Su knew with a little thought that Xie Yan was pretending to be a good guy again. Before the end of the world, he was used to showing kindness everywhere. He would always drag Su to do volunteer work. Now that it's the end of the world, doesn't Xie Yan just want to save more people, establish some prestige, and trick more survivors into supporting him? Don't think Xie Yan is stupid. He is very smart otherwise. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary person, and without Xie Yaoshe protecting him, how did Xie Yan survive for 2 years in the apocalypse? Wasn't it because he fooled Su, fooled Bai Luoluo, and fooled this and that? If Su hadn't killed him, he would have lived forever. When Xie Yaoshe's dark eyes looked at Xie Yan without saying a word, Xie Yan's expression became even more guilty. He lowered his head and apologized sincerely. I'm sorry, brother. I thought there were no zombies outside. When you came back last night, didn't you say that all the zombies outside the door were killed by you and Su? I'm sorry, they're all my classmates. I really can't just stand by and watch them die. You don't need to apologize. Fei tugged at Xie Yan's arm and looked at Su as if she was looking at an unforgivable villain, and said sarcastically, Su, do you think everyone is as distorted as you, cold-blooded, heartless, and ruthless? There is nothing wrong with what the squad leader did. He saved a lot of people, all of us. He saved a lot of people, saved all of us. This sentence made Su smile. She tightened the knife in her hand. The blade was still stained with zombie bones, looked at Xie Yaoshe, whose face was a little pale but still showed no expression, and then looked back at the survivors standing by the bus.
Who saved these people? Who?
Okay, Xie Yaoshe, you just protect this coward. Protect him with all your might. You're out there killing zombies. What is he doing? He's hiding in the garage. I just wanted to drag him out with me to kill some zombies. It's the end of the world. What's wrong with that? You're talking nonsense. You once told the squad leader that you would kill him. Bai Luoluo was killed by you. Is there anything in this world that you, Su, would not dare to do? You are not asking the squad leader to kill zombies. You are asking him to be killed by zombies. Fei spoke the truth, pulled Xie Yan's arm, took a step back, and looked at Su with an accusatory look. Xie Qingyan was obviously shocked and hurt when he heard it. He stammered and explained in a low voice without much persuasion. Fei Fei, Su wouldn't do this to me. In fact, everyone in Xiangtan University knows that since Su was framed by Luoluo, he hated Luoluo and almost strangled Luoluo to death. Just one day before the end of the world, Su ran to the hospital and killed Luoluo. Luoluo's parents also knew about this, and they and their classmates were planning to go to the hospital to see Luoluo for the last time. Unfortunately, the end of the world came, and this plan did not come true. Luoluo had already turned into a zombie. Xie Yaoshi, who had been silent the whole time, saw that Xie Qingyan was silent, so he spoke for Su. Qingyan, Luoluo bit you at that time. Don't you remember? If Xie Yaoshi couldn't understand Su at first, why someone with a personality like a little white rabbit would really get angry and kill someone, then now Xie Yaoshi can figure it out. Luoluo bit Xie Qingyan, and looking at the wound on Xie Qingyan's neck, a small piece of flesh was bitten off. Who in their right mind would bite someone's neck for no reason? So after Xie Yaoshi thought about it for a while, he knew why Su had to kill Luoluo, because Luoluo had turned into a zombie at that time. I felt the weight on my arms suddenly disappear. Xie Qingyan glanced at Xie Yaoshi with some resentment, then turned to Fei Fei and explained, "No, I'm fine. I haven't turned into a zombie. Look at my wounds. They're almost healed." Fei Fei couldn't help but move away from Xie Qingyan, but still looked at the bite wound on Xie Qingyan's neck. It was indeed almost healed. She wondered how credible Xie Yaoshi's words were, so she said stubbornly, "Even so, it's not too late for us all to figure it out before killing. The end of the world has come. If the end of the world hadn't come, Su would have become a murderer. Hey, I killed a zombie and asked you guys to come and watch?" Su glanced at Fei Fei with a sidelong glance and didn't argue with this fan of Xie Qingyan. She just looked at Xie Yaoshi and nodded. "Okay, if you are willing to support Xie Qingyan, it's okay. You can also support the others." Some of them pointed behind them with a gloating look. There was no telling how many people were packed on the bus, and people were getting off one after another. Even as they were talking, the survivors on the bus had not yet all got off, and soon the square in front of Xie Yaoshi's villa was filled with people standing there. Su smiled and glanced at Xie Yaoshi's slightly changed expression, turned around, raised her hand and made a bye gesture to Xie Yaoshi, then walked away on her own. Looking at Xie Qingyan again, Su felt that there was no need to rush him to die. With Xie Qingyan's personality, and Xie Yaoshi being a sensible man, she didn't know how long he could endure. She was watching the show. Brother. Xie Qingyan still didn't know what he had done. He took Fei Fei's hand and walked to Xie Yaoshi. Since saving classmates is saving alumni is saving, then saving some people in society is also saving. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, right? Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. Fei Fei is a smart girl. After Su said those sarcastic words, she looked back at the survivors who got off the bus. There were indeed too many of them, but there was no other way. They had no other way to go except to seek shelter from Xie Qingyan and Xie Yaoshi. Xie Yaoshi, who was watching all this, had an unpredictable expression on his face. He pursed his lips and didn't speak again. There was some light in his eyes, which was fading away little by little.
He just watched like that.
After Xie Qingyan thanked him profusely, he took all the survivors back to his villa. Looking at the survivors, they were all covered in dust and dirt, just like refugees who had just walked out of a refugee camp. As soon as they entered Xie Yaoshi's villa, they looked for food everywhere like crazy, without Xie Yaoshi's permission, and didn't even say hello to Xie Yaoshi. "Thank you, squad leader. We have not eaten for several days." "Thank you, squad leader." The person holding a piece of bread and chewing it while thanking Xie Qingyan was Xie Qingyan's classmate, named Wang Fan. Standing next to him was a petite girl, also drinking water from a mineral water bottle, looking at Xie Qingyan with tears of gratitude in her eyes. This girl was Li Anxin. Not far from Li Anxin was sitting Li Xiuyu. Li Xiuyu was not like the others who started looking for food as soon as they entered the door. She was a little shy and felt embarrassed to take up other people's space and eat other people's food, so she found an excuse with Li Anxin and ran out of Xia Yaosher's villa. Following Li Xiaoyu, two survivors in police uniforms walked out. One was strong and a little fat, and the other was tall and thin. Both were unwilling to accept Xia Qingyan's gifts. Xia Yaosher stood by the kitchen counter, his arms folded, looking at the group of people with increasingly cold eyes, looking at Xia Qingyan, who was surrounded by them, and saying words of thanks. The smile on Xia Qingyan's face was just like the one before the end of the world. Lang Lang was pleased. He touched his short hair and tried his best to comfort those people who were wolfing down their food. Don't worry. Eat slowly, I have more here. When he said this, he did not turn around to look at Xia Yaosher, nor did he ever think that these supplies were obtained by Xia Yaosher at the cost of his life, and the only person everyone was grateful to was Xia Qingyan. After watching for a while, Xia Yaosher turned around and went upstairs from the kitchen. He returned to the bedroom, found a backpack, put some comfortable sportswear in it, and didn't want to say a word to Xia Qingyan at this moment. He took the spare key of the car and drove out. However, Xia Yaosher did not leave the Apple Villa area. Instead, he drove to the gate of Su Su's villa first. While he was sitting in the car, he happened to see a girl wearing overalls and black-framed glasses, followed by two policemen, standing outside Su Su's villa and talking to Su Su. So Xia Yaosher didn't rush over, but got out of the car, leaned against a Volvo, and waited for Su Su to notice him.
Shushu quickly noticed Xia Yaoshi.
She smiled and said something to Li Xiuyu and the two policemen behind Li Xiuyu, then raised her hand to greet Xia Yaosher. Xia Yaosher folded his arms, raised his eyebrows and nodded, motioning Su Su to walk out of the yard to talk. When she opened the iron gate and walked out, she was wearing a long black down jacket and a pair of slippers on her feet. She walked up to Xia Yaosher and asked, "What are you doing? What do they want you for?" Looking at the three survivors, including Li Xiaoyu, with a cold face, a hint of murderous intent flashed in Xia Yaosher's eyes that he himself did not even notice. He did not forget that these three people were also let in by Xia Qingyan. He thought that the three of them could not get food in his villa, so they ran to Su Su to steal food. Su Su looked back at Li Xiuyu and the other two, and explained to Xia Yaosher, "Li Xiuyu and the others saw my father building a wall, so they came to ask if there was anyone who could help. All they had to do was give them a meal as wages. I agreed, and let them help my father build the wall, and I provided them with 3 meals a day."
Oh.
Hearing this, Xia Yaosher nodded, feeling a little relieved. In his mind, it was fine if this group of survivors harassed him, but if they harassed Su Su, Xia Yaosher would not be as polite as he was to the group of people in his room. After a pause, Xia Yaosher lowered his head and locked his eyes with Su Su's face. "I'm going out for a few days. Would you like to come with me? What are you going to do? Go with you to find supplies to feed Xia Qingyan?" Su Su smiled, with obvious sarcasm on her face. Xia Yaosher pursed his lips and looked at Su Su in silence. There was obvious anger in his eyes because Su Su said such blunt words again and again. But Su Su was not afraid. She shrugged nonchalantly, "Not possible these days."
See?
That policeman is said to be the Sonda champion of Xiangqing. His name is Peng Yuzhong. I want to learn a few moves from him. You go by yourself. Su Su pointed at the sturdy policeman behind him. He was walking into the yard and standing beside Su's father, watching how Su's father built the wall. Xia Yaosher looked in the direction of Su Su's finger. The policeman was indeed a bit sturdy, almost fat, but that couldn't hide the feeling of Peng Yuzhong as a martial artist. Xia Yaosher nodded, thought for a while, and said to Su Su, "Okay, I'll go alone then." After that, Xia Yaosher turned around and opened the car door. He looked back at Su Su, who looked calm and composed, and suddenly said, "Su Su, no matter what, can you spare Xia Qingyan's life?" Su Su was stunned for a moment, then she laughed because she found it very interesting. Just now, she really thought that Xia Yaosher drove here to team up with her to go out and kill zombies and find supplies. It turned out that the most crucial and true intention was that Xia Yaosher was afraid that Su Su would kill Xia Qingyan after he left.
She really thought so.
Xia Yaosher seems to say nothing on the surface, but He actually understands everything in his heart. He is a very smart person. You should understand what I mean. Qingyan and I grew up together. His parents raised me. From childhood to adulthood, no matter how big a mess he got into, I was the one who dealt with it. Su, from the day I met you, I have always treated you as my sister. I have seen what happened between you and Qingyan. I just hope that next time before you kill him, you will give me some face. All right, that's enough. Stop talking. Su frowned, looked at the man in front of her, sneered, and showed a toughness that she had never shown before. Since everyone has been so frank, I will be straightforward. In the Apple Villa district, if he doesn't come to me and seek death, I won't touch Xie Qingyan. This is for your sake. As for the future, we will see for ourselves. Xie Yaoshi was a good person. On the first day of the apocalypse, he risked his life to run out and save her. Just for this reason, when Xie Yaoshi asked for help, Su had to give Xie Yaoshi face. In the Apple Villa district, she would not touch Xie Qingyan, but Xie Qingyan would not stay in the Apple Villa district forever. By saying this, she was telling Xie Yaoshi that Su would never give up on killing Xie Qingyan. At most, she would let Xie Qingyan live a little longer. If Xie Yaoshi had the ability, he could protect Xie Qingyan for the rest of his life. And she, Su, just didn't want to be Xie Yaoshi's enemy, not that she was afraid of being his enemy. If they really fought for Xie Qingyan in the future, she, Su, would not necessarily be worse than Xie Yaoshi. After staring at Su for a while, Xie Yaoshi's face was heavy. He nodded without saying anything, turned around, and got into the Volvo. Now, it was very likely that only he and Xie Qingyan were left in the Xie family. No matter how Xie Qingyan tried to commit suicide, Xie Yaoshi had to save Xie Qingyan's life for his uncle. As for the future, if Su really insists on having his own way and really kills Xie Qingyan, Xie Yaoshi certainly hopes to avoid such a thing from happening, but Su is no longer as easy to talk to as before. He is also seriously injured now. To stop Su, he must wait until his injuries heal. Therefore, the most urgent thing for Xie Yaoshi is to find a place where he will not be angered to death by Xie Qingyan and recuperate. A layer of gray snow accumulated on the bushes and evergreen trees. The sky was getting dark again. The snowflakes fluttering in the sky became larger and denser. The silver Volvo gradually drove away, turned a corner, and completely disappeared from Su's sight. She looked at the empty road, as if she could still hear laughter in the distance. The laughter came from the direction of Xie Yaoshi's villa. Su's eyes were cold. She turned and entered the iron fence of the villa. She closed the iron door with a bang and entered the warm house. At this time, Su's mother had already prepared the meal. She washed her hands, put on her dirty work clothes, and ran to the yard to build a wall in the wind and snow. Her and Su's father's biggest wish now was to build the wall quickly. Just now, a bus rushed past the villa and several zombies fell from it. Although Su ran back to kill them, the degree of danger also reminded Su's father and mother in time. The construction of the wall cannot be delayed any longer. Even in such a safe villa area, such dangerous things can happen. There is no guarantee that there won't be zombies coming to attack in the future. So we can do nothing else and build the wall overnight. Su had already sat in the kitchen to eat. While she was eating, she looked at Li Xiaoyu and the two policemen who were working outside. The three of them didn't know how to build a wall at first, but after Su's father taught them a few times, the three of them worked hard to build it. They didn't take any chances or slack off. They did what they were supposed to do, very seriously. After a while, Su's mother, perhaps feeling hungry, turned around, opened the glass door, glared at Su who had already started eating, and said casually while placing dishes and chopsticks on the dining table, Su, I think those 3 kids are good. They can help us build the wall, and we can provide them with a few meals, but our family has limited supplies, and we only have a few rooms to sleep in, so we'd better not let them sleep in our house. Su's mother prayed with some guilt in her heart. Now is the end of the world, and she is just an ordinary woman with a husband and a daughter. Although she used to be a member of the neighborhood committee, It is unfair to her husband and daughter if she is not selfish at this time. Although the food is enough, it will be eaten up sooner or later. If they take in one survivor, countless survivors will crowd into their house. Sue's mother is very selfish. She looks at her daughter working so hard to kill zombies, but no one is willing to jump off the bus to help her. Sue's mother feels that she doesn't want strangers to crowd into the home that her daughter has worked so hard to protect. Who said to let them sleep in our house? Sue turned her head and looked at her mother in surprise. She pointed with her chopsticks at a villa across from the swaying trees. No one lives in that villa. Let them sleep there. Following the direction pointed by Sue's chopsticks, Sue's mother stretched her neck and looked out the kitchen window. Behind the trees with swaying branches, there was indeed a villa. Sue's mother immediately felt relieved and patted her chest. I was so scared.
I thought you were going to take them in.
I was worried for hours. Mom, I thought you would use the kindness of your neighborhood and to take these people in. I worried for nothing. Sue looked at her mother and said the truth. She had thought about this problem when she hired Li Xiaoyu and the other two. She was afraid that her mother would not be able to hold back and would warmly invite Li Xiaoyu and the other two to live in their home. But the reason why Sue still decided to hire these three people was that she felt that Li Xiaoyu and the other two were not bad and did not want to get something for nothing. Secondly, she also deliberately planned to let the matter ferment so as to teach Sue's mother a lesson. In the apocalypse, the thing that is most lacking is survivors. They are like people who have fallen into the sea. Once they grab a piece of driftwood that can save their lives, everyone will rush over until they drag the driftwood into the deep sea. Such a thing is happening around Xia Yaoshi right now. If Sue's parents are not allowed to experience it as well, Sue is worried that her parents' kindness will cause some unmanageable disaster in the future. Now it seems that Sue was completely worrying about nothing. Sue's father and mother are not unaware of the interests involved. When faced with natural disasters and man-made calamities, they have thought it through clearly. Outside the warm and bright villa, Li Xiaoyu blew on his red, frozen hands. The policeman next to him, who said he was once the Xiangqing Sanda champion Peng Yuzhong, saw this and said with some reluctance, Xiaoyu, take a rest over here. I'll help you finish your part. The tall and thin policeman next to Peng Yuzhong also nodded and said, yeah, it's okay. Let's move quickly and we can finish this part soon. No need. You haven't eaten in a few days. It's the same for everyone. Stop helping each other. Just hurry up and you'll have food when you're done. Li Xiaoyu shook his head, rubbed his frozen hands to warm them up, picked up the plastic bucket filled with cement on the ground, and began to build the bricks with great effort. Sue's father sat on a chair under the eaves, observing the three people while smoking. He was also tired from the busy work, so he sat down to rest. With a click, the glass door of the kitchen behind Sue's father opened, and Sue's mother came out with 3 large bowls of rice and 3 pairs of chopsticks. The rice was topped with stir-fried meat with green and red peppers, and there were 2 fried eggs under the meat. She greeted Li Xiaoyu and the other 2 warmly. Don't be busy. Let's eat first. The villa next door is very safe. There are no people and no zombies. You can go over there to eat, and then take a rest after eating. Come back tomorrow. Hey, thank you, Annie. Li Xiaoyu, who was almost crying due to the aroma of the food, dropped the work in his hands and took the large bowl handed to him by Sue's mother with both hands. Just this large bowl of rice was enough to show the sincerity of the Sue family. In fact, they worked for less than 2 hours in total, and the Sue family brought out the rice. 1 bowl was enough for 2 or 3 people. Peng Yuzhong and the tall and thin man were also moved. They lowered their heads, took the bowls without saying a word, and after thanking Sue's father and mother profusely with Li Xiaoyu and the other 2, they left Sue's villa impatiently, ran to the next door to pry the lock of the villa, and went in to eat. There was no way out. They had been hungry for several days. Although most of the survivors on the bus carried backpacks with food in them, Li Xiaoyu, Peng Yuzhong, and the tall and thin man were the ones who didn't bring any food. So they could only watch others eat. At this time of supply shortage, no one was kind enough to share some food with them. So when suddenly such a bowl of rice appeared, how could they not be anxious? But after a while, Li Xiuyu took the bowl and ran out of the villa again. She ran to Xia Yaoshi's villa under the cover of night. She was careful and left the bowl outside the villa. Then she knocked on the door of the villa and went in to look for Lian Xin. Although Xia Yaoshi's villa was very large, it still seemed a bit crowded with so many survivors crammed in at once. Only a few days had passed since the apocalypse, and this villa area was a high-configuration community with its own power generation system. So even though there was chaos outside, this villa area still had power supply, and not only power supply but also heating. When Li Xiaoyu went in, Xia Qingyan was distributing quilts and clothes to the survivors. It was impossible for so many survivors to sleep on beds, so everyone slept on the floor with their heads touching and their feet touching, filling up the upper and lower floors of the villa. Lian Xin and Feifei were following behind Xia Qingyan, helping to distribute quilts and supplies to the survivors. An Xian, come here for a moment. There was no way to enter the villa, so Li Xiaoyu stood at the entrance and waved to Lian Xin in front of him. When Lian Xin saw him, he turned around and said something to Xia Qingyan and Feifei, then stepped on the gap on the ground and walked in front of Li Xiaoyu. Before Li Xiaoyu could speak, Lian Xin lowered his voice and said, "Where did you go just now? I've been looking for you for a long time. There's nothing left for you to eat. The squad leader said his brother is missing. He must have gone out to look for supplies. Just be patient. When the squad leader's brother comes back, I'll find a way to leave some for you." "No, Anshin, let me tell you." Li Xiuyu pulled Li Anshin out of the door and stood outside the cold wind to prevent more people from hearing what she was about to say. "Anshin, we shouldn't put our hopes on the squad leader alone. All the food and drinks were earned by the squad leader's elder brother at the cost of his life. I've already found one. Xiaoyu, please stop dreaming. If we don't rely on the squad leader and his elder brother, who else can we rely on? You know what the world is like outside. Do you think it's still before the end of the world? Do you still plan to go out and find a job and get a salary?" Before Li Xiaoyu could finish, Li Anshin interrupted her impatiently. Perhaps because he felt that his tone was too harsh, Li Anshin looked at Li Xiuyu's lowered head, calmed down a bit, and consoled her. "Don't worry, Xiuyu, we are safe now. The squad leader just said that if we work together, we will always find a way out. How are you going to make a living? Well, let's wait for the monitor's brother to come back, and then we can discuss it." "All right."
Li Xiaoyu nagdasumawat disappointedly.
She originally wanted to bring some food to Lian Xin and tell Lian Xin that she could go to help Su Su's family build a wall in exchange for food. But before she could finish her words, Lian Xin interrupted her. Her words implied that she was waiting for Xia Yaoshi, the life-saving straw, to come back with supplies. If Lian Xin was the only one here, Li Xiaoyu would definitely continue to say what she wanted to say, but there was a room full of survivors inside the door, and Lian Xin was determined to follow Xia Qingyan to the end. If Li Xiaoyu mentioned the matter of Su Su's family building a wall, it might bring trouble to Su Su's family. So, let's not talk about it anymore. When Lian Xin is too hungry to bear it anymore, she will come to her for help, and then she will take Lian Xin to Su Su's house to build a wall. Xiuyu, where are you going? Seeing Li Xiaoyu turn around and walk out, Lian Xin was a little worried. He followed Li Xiaoyu for a few steps and shouted, "You better come in. There is electricity and heating in here. It's very cold outside." "No need. I saw many empty villas, so I just found one that was unused. I don't want to sleep on the floor with you guys," Li Xiaoyu said unhappily, without even turning his head, and walked a few steps out of the yard to get the bowl he left outside. Lian Xin behind him heard what Li Xiaoyu said, stopped in his tracks, patted his forehead with his hand, and realized, "Why didn't I think of that? There are so many empty villas. Why do we have to squeeze into the monitor's house?" Then, Lian Xin turned around hurriedly and wanted to discuss this matter with Xia Qingyan. There were so many vacant villas, and it would be more comfortable for everyone to live in different places. Only when people have a good rest can they have the energy to plan for the future. When Xia Qingyan and Feifei heard Lian Xin's proposal, they hesitated for a moment and began to organize the survivors who were already lying down to go to those vacant villas. However, These survivors had been tossing and turning in fear and panic for the past few days, and they were not starving, as most of their luggage contained supplies. The reason why they scrambled to loot Xiaoyaoshi supplies was because everyone wanted to keep their own food and eat others first, so that they could save their own for the last and most critical moment. Now that they are full, have heating and feel safe, many survivors would rather sleep on the floor and stay in Xiaoyao's family and don't want to leave. As for people like this, Xie Qingyan and the other two could only let them be. After all, it had not been easy for everyone these days, so if they could be more understanding, they should show some understanding. We have more than 70 survivors here now. Too many people will cause chaos. Before Brother Xie comes back, we have to make sure they don't cause trouble. On the second floor, there was a light on in a room, and Feifei's voice came from inside the door. It was obvious that they were organizing class meetings regularly. After most of the grumbling survivors went out to find an empty villa, the three of them held a long meeting overnight. The content of the meeting was how to manage these survivors. Beside a desk, Lianxin took out a notebook and a pen and wrote down what Feifei said. Then she and Feifei looked at Xie Qingyan. At this time, Xie Qingyan sat behind the desk, in the boss chair that used to be Xiaoyaoshi's. He nodded and agreed with Feifei's words. My eldest brother should be back with supplies tomorrow. After we have eaten our fill tomorrow, we will register the names, ages, and genders of the survivors and who lives in which villas. All of this must be registered. It's the end of the world, and no one can hide food and drinks. All the supplies they have hidden must be handed over and confiscated. This is the only way to ensure that everyone can survive. Feifei immediately agreed. Yes, that's right. What the monitor said makes sense. I remember seeing a family with a vegetable greenhouse in their yard on the bus. Do they have to pay for that too? Lianxin held a pen and asked Xie Qingyan inquiringly. Xie Qingyan's handsome face paused, and he looked up at Feifei and Lianxin and explained, That's Susu's family. Xie Qingyan was dragged out by Susu today, and he felt a little nervous. It might be the human instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm. He didn't know why he was afraid of Susu. Hearing Feifei's words so confidently, he couldn't help but doubt in his heart. Could it be that Susu really wanted to kill him? But when he thought about the fact that he was now responsible for the well-being of so many survivors, and Susu loved him so much before, he became bolder and continued. If Susu and the others want to survive in this villa area, they will naturally have to hand over their vegetables. No one can be an exception, not even Susu. Now Xie Qingyan still regards himself as the class monitor before the end of the world, acting like a class leader. Lianxin and Feifei in front of him, like Xie Qingyan, are unwilling to wake up from their comfortable dream. They both nodded seriously, and a hope for the future slowly rose in their hearts. The world was destroyed and their homes were gone, but it didn't matter. They could hide in this safe place like a paradise and slowly reshape a small human society. The danger would gradually go away from them, and the nightmare-like experience would eventually become a thing of the past. As Xie Qingyan had said before, there were almost no other people living in this villa area. Some people had turned into zombies and were killed by his eldest brother, so the survivors could live in whichever villa they wanted. In the dark night with wind and snow, many survivors came out of Xiaoyao's family and tried to pry the locks of the vacant villas. Outside Susu's house, several groups of survivors also came. However, seeing that there were lights inside, everyone remained restrained. They just leaned on the wall and looked inside again and again, but no one tried to break in by force. Warm light, tidy kitchen, and two newly opened vegetable greenhouses in front of the villa. How could the survivors of natural disasters and man-made tragedies not yearn for such a family? They did not force their way in, but it was just today. There was no guarantee that they would not force their way in tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow. As long as one person takes the lead, everyone would rush in regardless of their lives. Susu knew the mentality of these survivors very well, but she had only felt pity for their misfortune and anger at their lack of resistance since her previous life. She could not lead and organize these people like Xie Qingyan did. She did not have the energy and kindness to do so. That was why she told Xia Yaoshi that she would not go out for a few days, and that learning a few moves from Sonda champion Primyu was just a lie. The real purpose was to prevent the survivors outside from coming to her house to rebel. Su, I can see something is wrong. On the sofa, Father Su, who had been building the wall for a day, was soaking his feet. Although it was comfortable to put his cold feet into the hot water, it could not hide the worry on his face. Su, who was sitting on the small sofa, sneered when she heard this and wiped her knife. Don't worry. We can just kill one of these people who don't even dare to kill zombies to serve as a warning to others. When she talked about killing, there was no hesitation in her eyes, as if she did such things frequently. A single move of the knife took a life, which was no different from killing a zombie. Seeing this, Su's father, who was sitting nearby, felt his hair stand on end. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart, thinking that the end of the world really forces people to grow up. Su, who once dared not even step on an ant to death, had grown so much without realizing it. But who can say that Su was wrong to do so? Faced with such a severe survival situation, the Su family's greenhouse vegetables were like a mountain of gold and silver before the end of the world. If there were no strong protection measures, the three of them would become the target of everyone's crusade, and they might be the three of them who would starve to death. So in the end, Father Su didn't say anything. He moved his feet in the hot water, nodded, and just said, Mother Su, however, was more thoughtful than Father Su. She ran back and forth between the kitchen and the living room, and she was so worried. Just as Su finished wiping a dog-leg knife, she heard Mother Su anxiously say, "What's the point of killing one person to warn the rest? We don't have much supplies left. Besides the vegetables, how long can the frozen meat in the refrigerator last? And what about the rice? How long can the rice last? In a few days, I'm afraid the power and gas will be cut off. Sooner or later, we will have to go out to find supplies. If we go out, who will watch over this house?" "Oh, Mom, it's okay. Su couldn't stand her mother walking around anymore, so she stood up. "When we go out, we'll open the gate to the villa area and let the zombies in. I guarantee those cowards won't dare to hang around. But there are also brave ones. You're really brave. I'd like to get to know you. What's the big deal about giving a few vegetables, some frozen meat, and rice to a person like you? It's not that Su is stingy, nor is it that Su is inhumane. She bought thousands of dollars worth of frozen meat and filled the 3-door refrigerator to the brim. A lot of the meat that couldn't fit in had to be refrigerated and eaten by herself. She also stockpiled enough rice to feed a family of 4 for 2 years, and all of it was locked in the warehouse. It would be fine for Su to give some of these things to others, but human greed is unsatisfactory. If she gave things away once, she would give them away a second time. After she gave things away to one person, a second person would come out and ask her for more. Su felt that those survivors did not have the courage to go out and kill zombies, but once the external environment was safe, they had the courage to come out and beg for things. She would never give in to such people and would always be very stingy with the supplies in her hands and would never give such people a grain of rice. But there were people who were willing to risk their lives, kill zombies, and run to her house to steal food. Su respected and liked such people. After Su said this, Su's father and mother said nothing more. Su now has the aura of the head of the family. Her parents, who once took her to walk before the end of the world, are now led by her to rush around after the end of the world. Even so, Su's father and mother are willing. As long as the family is together, it doesn't matter what kind of life they live or who takes the lead. As long as they are together, as long as the 3 of them can survive together, none of them can be missing. On the second day, Su's father got up early and started to build his wall. 2 policemen from the building next door and Li Xiaoyu also came to help soon after. Su's mother specially prepared some breakfast with meat for the 4 of them and brought it to the yard. Li Xiaoyu took the big bowl handed over by Su's mother, picked up the chopsticks with gratitude, sat under the eaves, and began to eat with big mouthfuls. While eating, he asked Su's mother, "Aunt, where is Su? Isn't she coming down for breakfast?" "She's still sleeping." Mother Su handed the bowl to the two policemen and Father Su, looking at Li Xiuyu with some embarrassment on her face. Our Su Su is very lazy, not as diligent as you. Haha, Su Su is an expert in her field.
She only needs to kill zombies.
There is no need for her to do these hard labors. Li Xiaoyu was smiling, and what she said was not polite. That day, she was on the bus, watching Su Su chop off a zombie's head with a knife outside the bus, and she was envious. In fact, Li Xiaoyu also wanted to be like Su Su. As long as she could kill zombies, as long as she dared to kill zombies, would the supermarkets on the street full of supplies still be so far away? Uncle, Eru and I discussed it all night last night, and I won't come this afternoon. Sonda champion Peng Yuzhong looked at Su's father while eating and pointed to the thin and tall policeman named Eru beside him. Opposite this community is the police station where we used to work. I want to go there to get some guns. The Sonda champion Peng Yuzhong looked to be in his 30s and looked much more stable and solid than the tall and thin policeman named Eru. He ate the rice in his bowl, which seemed to taste a bit like wax, and explained to Father Su, "With a gun on me, I won't panic. After getting the gun, I want to go find my wife and children." When he said this, Peng Yuzhong's face was obviously lonely. The end of the world came too suddenly. In the past few days, he was only concerned with running and escaping. He didn't come back to his senses at all, and he didn't have time to come back to his senses. Yesterday was the night he ate the most and slept the best in the past few days. Then Peng Yuzhong came back to his senses. He felt that it was not good. He was safe, but what about his wife and children? He had to go find them. "You used to work at the police station across the street?" Su Su's words suddenly came to them, with a hint of joy and surprise. Everyone looked up and saw Su Su on the second-floor balcony, wearing a pair of wool slippers and a long black down jacket, leaning on the railing and talking to them. Peng Yuzhong couldn't help but nod, and Su Su upstairs smiled and said, "Before that, didn't you receive a murderer who surrendered himself, named Zhuo Shijia? Do you know where he went?"
Zhuo Shijia?
This name sounds familiar. Eru looked up, frowned, thought carefully, and asked with sudden realization, "Is she a doctor? The one who quarreled with her husband and accidentally pushed her husband down the stairs?" Yeah. Su Su nodded, like a chick pecking at rice, and the smile on her face became even wider. "Where is she? Is she dead? Or has she turned into a zombie?" "She didn't die, and she didn't turn into a zombie either." Eru shook his head, sighed, and continued, "That woman was very stubborn. We took her out and had already settled down in the library of No. 1 middle school, but she said there were still many newborns in incubators in the hospital, and she wanted to go back to save them. She refused to stay and ran away with a man named Brother Pai." Su Su couldn't help but curse in her heart. Zhuo Shijia actually ran to the hospital. Su Su didn't need to guess which hospital he went to. It must be the hospital where Zhuo Shijia worked before the end of the world. This doctor really is an unusual doctor. She silently looked into the distance. There were trees, water, a gray sky, and endless zombies in the distance. The big hospital where Zhuo Shijia worked was now a zombie concentration camp. She went to save the babies in the incubators? Babies. Su Su was a little tempted. If a person doesn't go crazy when he is young, he will be in vain. Although she is already a mother, she also wants to go crazy. What should she do? Those babies who are crying for food have been hungry for many days. How many of them have not turned into little zombies? How many of them have not starved to death? Even if there is only one baby left, they are all worth saving.
But there are so many things in the Apple Villa area.
It takes more than a few hours to go to the hospital and the zombie concentration camp. If Su Su leaves her parents in the Apple Villa area, she is worried that her parents will be eaten by the survivors. But if she takes her parents away and returns to this villa, I am afraid that this place has been swept by the survivors for many reincarnations. Otherwise, she would have to wait for a while until her parents' abilities became stronger, but Zhuo Shijia might not be able to wait, and neither could the babies in the incubators. "Let me take care of something. I'll go out with you tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow." Su Su lowered her head and said to Peng Yuzhong, "Of course, if you're really in a hurry, you can go first." At this time, Just as Su Su lowered her head and spoke to Peng Yuzhong, Lian Xin and Fei Fei walked out from the corner of a woods on a distant path. They were holding a form in their hands, and behind them were a large group of survivors with pale faces. Su Su, as well as Su's father, mother, Li Xiaoyu, Eru, and Peng Yuzhong, who were having breakfast in the yard on the first floor, all looked up at the same time and saw Lian Xin and Fei Fei coming over with a large group of survivors.
Li Xiaoyu.
Lian Xin seemed to see Li Xiaoyu sitting on a pile of rocks eating a delicious breakfast. She yelled angrily. They had been saving their food since last night, waiting for Brother Xie to bring back supplies. But when Brother Xie still hadn't come back this morning, they were all hungry. Li Xiaoyu was good. When everyone was about to starve to death, she actually hid here to eat alone. No, it wasn't just Li Xiaoyu. Except for Su Su, who was lying on the balcony on the second floor with a half-smile on her face, everyone in the yard was holding a large bowl in their hands. Large bowl. A large bowl that big was enough for 2 or 3 people to eat. Li Xiaoyu heard Li Anxin's angry call, and the fingers holding the chopsticks trembled. Then he put down the bowl in his hand, stood up, walked to the wall that was already built up to his knees, looked at Li Anxin, who was walking over, and asked, "Anxin, you're here. Li Xiaoyu, I always thought of you as my best sister and best friend, but I didn't expect you to. You actually had food but didn't give it to me, making me hungry all morning." Li Anxin was a little proud of herself and didn't say the last sentence directly. She just thought that after being Li Xiaoyu's sister for so many years, Li Xiaoyu would understand what she meant. Little did she know that Li Xiaoyu turned her head to look at Fei Fei and the group of survivors following behind her. Her eyes dodged for a moment, and she did not take the initiative to ask Li Anxin to eat. She just lowered her head and chose to remain silent. She did not want to cause trouble for Su Su. In this situation, whether she said one more word or one less word, it would be wrong anyway, so she might as well let everyone think that she was the kind of villain who would hide away and eat delicious food. It has to be said that Li Xiaoyu is courageous, but lacks training and is a bit naive. In the current situation, the Su family has obviously been surrounded by the survivors, and Li Xiaoyu is sitting in the Su family's yard eating. Not only Li Xiaoyu is eating, but everyone sitting in the yard is holding a bowl and eating heartily. Even a fool would know where Li Xiaoyu and Peng Yuzhong's food came from. It's not a matter of whether Li Xiaoyu explains or not to save the Su family from being attacked, nor is it a matter of whether the Su family takes out this bowl of rice to eat in public. The vegetable greenhouse is here. Even if there are no 2 vegetable greenhouses, there will be survivors who come out to make trouble. Su Su on the second floor, with one hand on her cheek, a mysterious smile in her eyes, watching the people talking. The expressions on those people's faces are as if the Su family has committed some unforgivable crime. Some are resentful, some are greedy, and some are salivating. At this time, Fei Fei, who was behind Li Xiaoyu, took out a form under the support of public opinion and stood by the wall in a serious manner. As Su Su expected, she said to Su's father and mother inside the wall, "Since your family still has extra food, please hand it over and confiscate it. We are all survivors standing on the same boat now, and everyone's privately hidden food must be confiscated. Our Su family has lived in this villa longer than you. When did this rule come into being?
How come we don't know about it?"
Looking at Fei Fei, who looked as if it was a matter of course, Su's mother laughed out of anger. The world has changed, and people have become lawless. A young girl is like a bandit leader, and the group of survivors behind her are a bunch of bandits. Don't think that because Su's mother is a housewife, she can't understand the mentality of these survivors. In name, they are asked to hand over the food for confiscation, but in fact, they are just robbing. It would be fine if the Su family handed over the food obediently today, but if they don't, I'm afraid they will besiege and forcibly search the house. This is the new rule we set after discussion in the meeting. Please cooperate with us." Li Anxin glanced at Li Xiaoyu coldly. The expression on her face was as if Li Xiaoyu had done something very sorry to her. She did not forget to say to Su's mother, "Those of us who have hidden food have had it confiscated. For the sake of the survival of all the survivors in this community, Please hand over all the food. What will happen if you don't hand it over? Su on the second floor was still lying on the balcony. She hadn't eaten anything since she vomited in the morning. Her stomach was aching and she had no patience to watch the show. However, she still had a calm and mysterious smile on her face. Her pale face looked bloodless, and at first glance, she looked so weak that she could be crushed to death with one hand. Seeing Su like this, Lianshin stammered for a moment, but she didn't say anything. She even took a step back. If she hadn't forgotten, Su, who looked like a daughter on the outside, had dared to kill by Luoluo before the apocalypse, what would happen after the apocalypse? So Lianshin was actually still a little afraid of Su. Not only Lianshin was a little afraid, but all the Hunan University students present, who had heard that Su had killed by Luoluo before the end of the world, were actually a little scared. But they were really hungry. Most of the food had been confiscated long ago, and Xia Yaoshi had not come back for a long time. In addition, they felt that they had more people on their side, and more power would make more powerful. So they had nothing to be afraid of when dealing with a mere Su. The first person who jumped out was a 40-year-old burly man. He kicked away a stone on the wall under his feet with a grumpy kick, clenched his fists, pointed at Su on the second-floor balcony, and shouted angrily, "You guys are shameless, huh? If you have the guts, come down and I promise I won't beat you to death." "Brother, don't be so unreasonable." Sonda champion Prung Yuzhong couldn't stand it anymore, so he put down his bowl and chopsticks, stood up, and walked to the burly uncle. Su was such a delicate girl, and had such a kind heart. But this burly uncle didn't yell at the men standing in the yard, but pointed at a little girl and yelled at her. Was that interesting? Bang! The burly uncle stretched out his hand and spoke with his fist, punching Prung Yuzhong in the face. Prung Yuzhong's face changed, and he raised his fist to glare back at the burly uncle. Unexpectedly, the group of survivors outside the yard suddenly rioted, and they all rushed up to punch and kick Prung Yuzhong. The rest of them were obviously ready to dismantle the iron fence. Li Xiuyu was so scared that her face turned pale. Su's father and mother clasped their hands, looking at the group of humans rushing towards them as if they were zombies, filled with fear. Arrow rolled up his sleeves and went to help Prung Yuzhong. The yard suddenly became a mess. But where was Su? She walked downstairs slowly, wearing her wool slippers, and walked to the living room on the first floor. She picked up the dog-leg knife on the table, went into the kitchen, opened the glass door, and came to the group of survivors who were demolishing the wall. Without blinking, she raised her hand and chopped off a palm. A shrill scream was heard. Su's mother couldn't bear to watch it, so she leaned her head against Su's father's shoulder. Su continued to chop off the palms, 1, 2, 3, until all the hands that were dismantling the iron fence didn't dare to touch the iron fence, and she had no hands left to chop off. The screams continued to ring out. Amidst such shrill screams, no one knew that a long line of miscellaneous vehicles were slowly driving into the street outside the villa area. Each car was smashed beyond recognition, but was still moving forward, as if it would not fall apart until it reached its destination. Oh my God! King Kong sat in the passenger seat of the first Hummer, his face covered in dust. He turned to look at Yu, who was driving, and asked, "Brother, does your Su live here? This street is about to be overwhelmed by zombies. Hurry up and call your Su to see if our goddess is still alive. My phone is out of battery." With a cigarette in his mouth, Yu frowned as he looked at the densely packed zombies in the block ahead. Where had all the survivors gone? Why had no one come to clear out the zombies outside? If these zombies were allowed to gather more and more, the final result would most likely turn into a zombie tide. Coming all the way from the city, it's not that Yu didn't want to hurry, but his ability was really limited. He simply couldn't get here fast enough. When they came out of the CDC, they encountered several zombie attacks of varying sizes. Now Yu and the others were experienced in dealing with these zombies. They could see at a glance that there must be more than just Su's family in the Apple Villa area, otherwise there wouldn't be so many zombies wandering around. When zombies have no target, they wander around randomly, but when they have a target, a connection will be formed between the zombies. One zombie will lead the zombies nearby to act together, and then more and more zombies will gather, eventually turning into an irresistible disaster. Those survivors entered the Apple Villa district, but did not come out regularly to clean up the zombies, so the zombies were all blocked on the street, causing zombies from several nearby streets to come over. The nearby zombies then alarmed several blocks next door, and as a result, all the wandering zombies wandered towards the gate of the Apple Villa district. Now, the zombies surrounding the outermost area discovered Yu and others sitting in the car, and they turned around and surrounded their convoy as if they had discovered a new continent. Yu and his people wanted to go in but couldn't, and wanted to go out but couldn't. Go ahead and kill them. There's no other way. Yu took a puff of his cigarette resignedly and honked the car horn a few times to greet the brothers in the cars behind him. Then he opened the car window and stretched his hands forward to hold back the zombie that was about to rush into the window. A fierce fire burst out from the zombie's body, and the zombie was instantly burned to ashes. King Kong beside him and the brothers in the car behind him also started to fight. They were now very experienced in killing zombies and soon cleared a space next to the car. In the last car of the convoy, there were two people, a man and a woman. They didn't look like Yiyu's teammates, but rather like two survivors. When they saw Yiyu and the others coming out of the car, the woman sitting in the passenger seat turned around and searched for a knife in the back seat. While searching, she asked as if chatting, "Wang Jun, didn't you keep watch with Brother Yi yesterday? You didn't ask them why they had to come to Xiangqing? How could Xiangqing be better than Beijing? Why did they have to go south instead of north?" Yiyu said he came to look for his sister. Wang Jun, who was sitting in the driver's seat, had already gotten out of the car to help while he was talking. As survivors, the two of them were able to follow Yiyu and his group all the way to Xiangqing, which was already the greatest kindness of Yiyu and his group. How could he be so ignorant of their identities and ask so many questions about other people's privacy? "Oh, come to find your sister." Liang, who asked the question earlier, understood immediately. The world is so chaotic and Yiyu is so capable, so it is natural for him to come to find his relatives. So she must have a good relationship with Yiyu's sister, so that she can successfully integrate into Yiyu's group. Having made up her mind, Liang took some controlled knives and started to help. The group of people, plus two survivors who joined in halfway, fought the zombies very well. At this time, inside the Apple Villa district, the survivors whose hands were chopped off were howling in pain on the ground. Those who had grabbed Peng Yuzhong and Eru and beat them up retreated several meters, looking at Su Su in silence. Su Su opened the iron gate, holding the bloody dog-leg knife, walked out with a frosty look in his eyes, glanced at the honest survivors and said loudly, "You have the ability to bully humans, but you don't have the courage to go out and kill zombies. As a human being, you might as well die early, so as not to cause more casualties and more family tragedies in the future. You don't dare to die? Then I will help you." After that, she raised the dog-leg knife in her hand and pretended to chop the nearby survivors. The survivors screamed and scattered like birds and beasts and ran away. Even those who lost their palms ran faster than rabbits. Seeing the empty surroundings, Su Su sneered. With such a little courage, he wanted to learn to be a bandit. And the one who organized these people must be no one else. It must be Xie Qingyan. In his previous life, Xie Qingyan had done such a thing. He gathered the survivors together and asked all the survivors to confiscate their supplies. Anyone who disobeyed would be attacked by other survivors. In fact, he did these things to keep everyone alive. Others don't know, but Su Su doesn't understand. In Xie Qingyan's heart, he actually wanted him to survive. If everyone's supplies were confiscated, the most guaranteed thing was that he, an ordinary person, would have no worries about supplies and food to survive. The funny thing is that Xie Qingyan never took part in these matters himself. It was always Su Su, Lianxin, Bai Luoluo, and other women who had a crush on him who supported him. Su Su suppressed her contempt for Xie Qingyan, picked up a dagger, found a plastic bag to pick up the hand on the ground, and then walked towards Xie Yaoshi's villa with the plastic bag in one hand and the dagger in the other. The survivors she met along the way fled in panic, and when they saw her, They all had horrified expressions, as if they were looking at a ghost. Su Su walked all the way to the front of Xia Yasher's villa, raised her hand and smashed the iron gate of the yard outside the villa with a slash of her knife. Looking up at the closed doors and windows and the drawn curtains on the second floor, he said loudly, "Xia Qingyan, don't go too far in your life. I, Su Su, store my own food and live my own life. I don't bully others or do evil. If you don't know the current situation and insist on getting in front of me, I will kill you in a matter of minutes." After saying that, Su Su shook the plastic bag in her hand, poured out all the contents of the bag, and scattered them in Xia Yasher's yard. Then she looked up and around. There was no one around her, no survivors, and no Xia Qingyan. There was complete silence, as if she was facing a deserted villa area. "You are a bunch of pig-like cowards, cowards," Su Su shouted. Her heart was filled with indignation and dissatisfaction, and a deep sadness swept over her. This was human nature. Faced with her provocation, no one had the courage to speak out. Where did the excitement of the crowd when they went to her house to make trouble earlier go? Where did it go? There was really no point in fighting. Facing such a group of people, Su Su didn't even have the mood to fight. She kicked the human hands stained with grass debris on the ground, threw down the blood-stained plastic bag, turned around and walked back. On the second floor of Xia Yasher's villa, Xia Qingyan sat by the curtains, wearing a thin sweater. The heating in the room was turned on high. He buried his head in his knees, hugging himself tightly, feeling a heart-wrenching pain in his heart. If Xia Qingyan could tolerate and forgive Su Su's coldness and bad words to him in the past, then what Su Su did today had completely crossed Xia Qingyan's bottom line. She had broken Xia Qingyan's heart and made him extremely disappointed. Thinking back on what happened today, Xia Qingyan didn't feel that he was at fault at all. He just wanted to help the survivors and wanted everyone to work together to overcome the difficulties and let everyone share their hidden supplies so that everyone could survive and their own survival would be guaranteed. What was wrong with this? He did nothing wrong. But Su Su not only rebelled against the rules and policies he had set, but also slapped him so hard that Xia Qingyan's entire plan was disrupted. Who would obey his discipline in the future? If he couldn't control those survivors, wouldn't the Apple Villa district be in chaos? There were footsteps around him. Xia Qingyan was still sitting on the wooden floor, hugging his knees, with red eyes, looking at Fei Fei, who was walking over. Fei Fei's face was full of anger toward Su Su. The angrier she was, the more obvious the grievance on Xia Qingyan's face was. "Squad leader, don't be scared by that witch Su Su. She came here on purpose to cause trouble. She wanted to slap us in the face in this way so that none of us could survive. But there is no other way now. She is so powerful that we can't beat her at all." This villa area has completely become Su Su's world. Xia Qingyan shook his head, looking somewhat without fighting spirit and feeling hopeless. Fei Fei saw this and became anxious. She knelt down beside Xia Qingyan, stretched out a hand, and whispered, "Who said we can't beat her? Even if we can't beat her now, we will definitely be able to beat her in the future. Squad leader, let me show you, what is this?" Hearing this, Xia Qingyan lowered his head and looked over, only to see a small, green seed lying in Fei Fei's white palm. Under Xia Qingyan's surprised gaze, the seed in Fei Fei's palm was slowly sprouting and finally grew into a small bean sprout. "Squad leader, this is a superpower. I heard from Eru that Su Su's father also has a superpower, but he can only condense large stones and can't eat or drink. My superpower can promote the growth of plants. From now on, we don't need to envy the greenhouse vegetables of the Su family." "Really?" Fei Fei. Listening to Fei Fei's joyful words, Xia Qingyan's eyes flashed with a subtle jealousy, but his expression was so overjoyed that he couldn't help but hug Fei Fei and shouted, "I'm so happy, Fei Fei. You are really the lucky goddess of my life. As long as we have seeds, we won't have to worry about vegetables." We must tell everyone this good news in time. People's hearts were scattered by Su Sugong. Without a piece of breaking news, Xia Qingyan would find it difficult to gather people's hearts. He saw hope in Fei Fei, and Fei Fei's face suddenly turned red because of Xia Qingyan's hug. She pursed her lips and lowered her head, looking like a shy little girl, and let Xie Qingyan pull her and run downstairs. Maybe it was because he was too focused on power, fame, and wealth. Although Xie Qingyan felt incredible shock at the fact that humans had superpowers, he hardly wasted too much energy on studying this aspect. The first reaction in his mind was that Fei Fei had superpowers. Su Su's father had superpowers, so why didn't he? Then the second reaction was to calculate what kind of help could Fei Fei bring to his current situation with such a magical superpower. What could he let Fei Fei do? Here, Xie Qingyan was struggling in this little world to grasp the overall situation and provide the greatest guarantee for his own survival. Over there, Su Su had already picked up a knife and walked back to his villa leisurely. Su's father and mother were still standing in the yard nervously. When they saw Su Su coming back, Su's mother quickly ran up to her, hugged Su Su, and murmured, "These people are scarier than zombies. These people are scarier than zombies. Mom, it's okay, you guys keep building the wall, keep going." In the end times, the scary thing is never the zombies, but the human heart. No matter how miserable human life is, or how arrogant they will always fight against each other. If they can cling to a big tree, they will never fight for themselves. This is the deepest laziness of human beings. Although Su Su still has sunshine in her heart, she is not unfamiliar with such darkness. She doesn't want to tell her parents about the darkness one by one. In the future, when she walks in the end times, her parents will see it sooner or later. After comforting her parents, Su Su looked at Eru, Peng Yuzhong, and Li Xiaoyu, who were standing in the yard with frightened faces. Eru and Peng Yuzhong had bruises on their faces, and there were many blood marks, as if they were scratched by fingernails. Su Su frowned slightly, turned and went into the villa, went to the basement alone, took out the medicine she had stockpiled from the basement, which was full of supplies, found a large plastic bag to put some of the medicine in, and carried it out. "Mom, come here for a moment." After placing the plastic bag of medicine on the coffee table, Su Su called her mother, who was standing in the yard, helping her father build the wall. When she heard Su Su's call, she immediately trotted into the living room. Su Su handed the big bag of medicine to her mother and told her, "I'm going to go out and see if the gate of the villa is locked. By the way, clear the zombies outside the gate, otherwise it might cause a zombie tide. Please see if there is any disinfectant in these medicines. Apply some to Eru and Peng Yuzhong. They have worked hard just now. Please cook a few more dishes for them and find 2 clean-down jackets for them to change into."
Okay.
Mother Su nodded, took the big bag of medicine that Su Su handed over as if it were a treasure, and asked curiously, "Where did you get so many medicines?" "I bought it." Su Su's answer was very simple. She didn't even bother to look at her mother's confused expression. She picked up the knife on the coffee table, went into the entrance hall to change her shoes, and then went straight to the garage to drive the car out. In the yard, Peng Yuzhong stared at the military jeep that was speeding away, his eyes blank. Era beside him saw this, waved his hand in front of Peng Yuzhong, glanced at Su's father who was working hard to turn stones, and asked in a low voice, "Yuzhong, what are you thinking about?" The Sonda champion named Peng Yuzhong came to his senses and ignored Eru. Instead, he turned to look at Su's father and asked, "Uncle, is Su driving to go out? Didn't she say before that she wanted to go out with me?" Peng Yuzhong had intended not to come in the afternoon. He had made a great decision and spent many days to adapt to this crazy world. After adapting, he would go to find his wife and children. But Su drove out now, just like going out shopping before the end of the world, without any preparation. Will she come back if she comes and goes freely and naturally? Oh, she just went out to play. This child is playful. She will be back soon. She is in a hurry to eat dinner. Father Su comforted Peng Yuzhong, saying something ordinary. Su was just playful. Others were terrified of killing zombies, but she was having a blast. She treated killing zombies like a game. If she was not allowed to kill zombies, she would act as if her fun was taken away. But it's so dangerous outside. Li Xiaoyu also stared blankly at the direction where Su left, muttering to himself and asking, "If we don't go out, won't our family starve to death in here?" Father Su raised his eyelids and glanced at Li Xiaoyu and Peng Yuzhong.
Get to work.
We'll have more food tonight. Great, let's add extra dishes tonight. Hearing that there would be extra dishes tonight, Eris seemed very excited. However, Peng Yuzhong and Li Xiaoyu looked at each other with a thoughtful expression on their faces. They knew better than anyone what was happening outside. The Apple Villa district was like Noah's Ark in the ocean, and everyone thought that they could save their lives by getting on this Noah's Arkansas. But Su jumped off Noah's Arkansas. So don't blame the Su family for having good food and clothes, because they dared to go into the ocean to fish. Do the other people on the ark have the courage? If they had half the courage of Su, they wouldn't have to live in hunger and cold. After a while, Peng Yuzhong and Li Xiaoyu seemed to have figured something out. They lowered their heads and began to build the wall in silence. Era's hands were not idle either, but he was thinking about what he would eat soon. Father Su sat on the chair, watching the reactions of the three people, and remained silent. On the other side, Su, who was driving a jeep, parked the car beside the gate of the Apple Villa district, put on full speed, pressed the electronic lock of the gate, and when the gate opened with a clang, her jeep galloped out like a horse, crushing countless zombies in an instant. Su looked at the few zombies outside the gate in silence. She thought she could crush countless zombies. She looked around. Where did her lovely crystal cores go? Where did they go? A whistle sounded, and Su looked up. A bunch of messy, dilapidated cars of various styles, colors, and styles had stopped on the street where there were a few zombies. However, Su was concentrating on crushing the zombies to obtain the crystal cores at that time, and did not see these cars. Now, the whistle came from the first jeep. The window was lowered, and Yu, with a shaved head and a dirty face, stuck his head out. He looked energetic and gave Su a thumbs up. Nice drift. Her lovely crystal cores were taken away by this group of people. Su lowered the car window with a cold face and punched Yu in the face. Then she turned around and drove back to the villa area. Seeing this, Yu drove away quickly from behind her jeep. He did not kill the remaining zombies and focused on catching up with Su. Su was a little annoyed because she didn't earn any crystal cores because she rarely went out. She drove without paying attention to the long line of cars following behind her. Anyway, there were already a group of survivors in the Apple Villa district, and it would make the area more lively with Yu and his group. Squad leader, a convoy of vehicles is heading to Su's home. Just as Xie Qingyan was holding Feifei's hand and announcing to the survivors in Xie Yasher's villa the good news that Feifei had awakened her special powers, Wang Fan and Li Anxin ran in. Wang Fan shouted all the way and stood in front of Xie Qingyan, while Li Anxin followed behind and said to Xie Qingyan, "It looks like a group of soldiers, all wearing camouflage special clothing, and there are a lot of supplies tied on the roof of the car." A soldier? Xie Qingyan frowned, not thinking that this news was good at all. The other survivors were excited and started discussing it. "Are you really a soldier? The government is here to pick us up. We will be safe soon. Those supplies are sent to us." That's great. We have been looking forward to it for a long time. Finally, the troops are coming. Xie Qingyan, can you return the supplies I handed over to me? I'm afraid that when the time comes, the soldiers will come to pick us up and leave, and they won't have enough time to get my things. Yeah, give it back to us. The survivors, who had been pacified with great difficulty, were now showing signs of becoming furious again. When they heard what Wang Fan and Li Anxin said, they thought that Yu and others were here to pick them up, so they asked Xie Qingyan to return their supplies. So Xie Qingyan's handsome face could no longer remain kind. He raised his hand and tried his best to comfort everyone. "Everyone listen to me. Everyone listen to me. We don't know whether this army is coming to pick us up or not. Don't let anyone affect our unity and stability. They're going to Su's house. If they're not coming to pick us up, we will just take back the supplies and people's hearts will be scattered. It will be very difficult to gather again. Yeah, maybe those soldiers weren't here to pick us up, but maybe they were the mistress of that which Su. Feifei added fuel to the fire and said very unpleasant things. She had heard that the man who had slept with Su Su before the apocalypse was from the army and was quite capable. Maybe it was that man who came to find Su Su. How shameless. Su Su had been hooking up with that man before the apocalypse. Unexpectedly, after the apocalypse, the two of them completely ignored the existence of Xie Qingyan and were openly dating. As Fei Fei spoke, Xie Qingyan's face turned greener and greener. If the soldier in this team was really that beast Yu, how unfair was God to him? Because of Fei Fei's identity as a superpower, her words temporarily appeased many people, and the matter of Xie Qingyan occupying all people's supplies was temporarily suppressed. However, there were still many people who still had illusions about Yu and others. After leaving Xie Yao's family, they sneaked towards the Su family villa. At the Su family villa, Su Su parked the car in a garage, and Yu's team could only park outside the yard of Su Su's house.
Shaoye.
Su's father was sharp-eyed. When he saw Yu jumping down from the jeep, he was so overjoyed that he cried for joy. He was more excited than seeing his relatives. Before Su Su walked out of the garage, Su's father went out to greet her. Su's mother watched from the side and couldn't help rolling her eyes and turned sideways to greet her daughter. Look at your father's character. Who is his biological child? Su's mother took the dog-leg knife from Su Su's hand indignantly and followed Su Su into the house. She was very dissatisfied with Su's father's attitude towards Yu. People say that a girl from one family is sought after by hundreds of families. Is Su Su unable to get married, or is no one wanted? Why is he so enthusiastic about Yu? Su Su went to the kitchen, picked up an empty cup and drank a sip of water, then tilted her head to look at Peng Yuzhong and Arrow, who had stopped working in the yard. They might have been scared by the blood and mud on Yu and his men. Including Li Xiaoyu, they all stood in the yard staring at the gang outside. Peng Yuzhong and Arrow both had band-aids on their faces and medicine on their hands. Su's mother was quite efficient. While Su Su was out, she not only applied medicine on Peng Yuzhong and Arrow's bodies, but also picked a lot of vegetables from the greenhouse. Under Su's mother's meticulous care and the unconscious stimulation of her special abilities, those vegetables are growing faster and faster. The lettuce seeds that were sown yesterday have grown tender green and oily lettuce leaves today, and they will probably be ready to eat tomorrow. This means that Su's mother's special abilities are improving day by day, but she hasn't noticed it yet. Su didn't plan to explain it clearly to her mother, nor did he plan to explain it to anyone else. After all, people should know how to restrain themselves. People with superpowers are already quite eye-catching. A person with superpowers who can grow crops will be a talent that all forces will compete to win over, both now and in the future. Let everyone think that Su's mother is just an ordinary person who likes to grow vegetables in the greenhouse. Su does not need her mother to fight for face, nor does she need to rely on her mother to stabilize people's hearts. Their family of four does not seek to live a glorious life, nor does they need to have much power. As long as they can live self-sufficiently and stably in troubled times, it will be enough. However, Su looked up at Yu, who was just meeting up with Su's father, and the group of soldiers who got off the car behind Yu, and frowned. Regardless of whether her mother's wood-related abilities were improving, the vegetables in the 2 vegetable greenhouses today might not last until tomorrow, as soldiers were big eaters. At this moment, Su's mother was unaware of anything. She was using a ladle to scoop water from the sink to wash the dog-leg knife, muttering about her dissatisfaction with Su's father. Su seemed to be listening seriously and didn't say a word to interrupt. In fact, Su understood Su's father's mentality a little bit, because when Su's father was young, he also served in the army for several years, so emotionally, he identified with the profession of soldier. In addition, Yi was a special forces soldier, so Su's father thought that this person was even better. But in Su's mind, she and Yi were not what her parents thought. At most, they were just acquaintances who had slept with each other once. Well, now she seems to have another layer of bond with this acquaintance with whom she had slept once. In the chaotic times, he really listened to Su's father's call for help and rushed all the way from the city to Xiangqing. Just the fact that this person can stand here now makes Su feel warm in her heart. Just as I was thinking about it, I heard a bustling sound outside the door, and then Sue's father shouted, "Wife, wife, hurry up and cook, stir-fry meat, stir-fry vegetables, and cook more rice. Xiaoya and the others are hungry." "That's enough for me." Upon hearing this, Sue's mother couldn't hold back any longer. She threw away her knife, rolled up her sleeves, and was ready to fight Sue's father. Didn't she know that this was the end of the world? Didn't she know that a meal was more precious than gold? With this posture and this shouting, is he going to use the Su family's limited supplies to hold a banquet? Sue's mother walked out of the kitchen angrily. Just as she was about to curse, she was stunned and swallowed the words in time. Su was curious, so she walked out of the kitchen with a cup of water. She saw that their living room was crowded with dusty Special Forces soldiers. The special combat uniforms of each Special Forces soldier looked like they had rolled in the mud, and even the colors could not be distinguished. Their shoulders were full of supplies, including rice, oil, sacks of vegetables, and a gasoline barrel. A live, squealing pig. This was not counting the bags they were carrying in their hands. Each bag was bulging, and you could faintly hear the sound of chickens crowing. Ouch! This at this moment, the smile on Sue's mother's face could not be concealed. Yu put the 2 large bags of eggs in his hands on the sofa, took off the 4 high-end quilts on his back, wiped his black and sweaty face, and smiled embarrassedly at Sue's mother. "Aunt, these are some of the supplies we picked up on the road. They are just a small token of our appreciation. Please accept them. We are all grown men, and you can see that we are not very good at cooking. Why are you talking about all this? Why are you talking about all this? You came all the way here, so I'll make you a meal. It's just a piece of cake. Wait, I'll make it for you." Sue's mother glanced at Yu with a reproachful look, as if blaming Yu for being too polite, and turned around with a smile to go get some food. As soon as she left, those Special Forces soldiers, covered in supplies, came to Su like a flood of beasts. This one said, Su, thank you so much. If it weren't for your timely information, I would not be a supernatural being today, but a dead soul. These supplies are for you. Thank you, thank you." The other one said, "You must be Su, right? This is a gift from me on behalf of my brother to thank you for your outstanding contribution to our death squad. Su, this is a gift from me to you. Goddess, you are our hope. For so many days and nights, your phone calls have shown us a clear path. Come, please accept this chicken." Amid the enthusiastic tributes from the Special Forces, Su unexpectedly turned sideways, bent over, and vomited. She had not eaten breakfast, no breakfast, no breakfast. Her stomach had begun to churn when she was chopping people's hands. Now those live chickens, ducks, and pigs were placed in front of her. Su felt more and more uncomfortable and could not help but in front of everyone. Silence. Everyone was silent, including Sue's father, who was smiling, and Yu, who was standing beside Su and looked at a loss. After a moment of silence, Yu suddenly jumped up and kicked King Kong, who was closest to Su, cursing, "King Kong, you grandson, you made Su stink. Is this my fault? I haven't showered in dozens of days."
Ugh, I'm sorry, goddess.
"I'll back off immediately." King Kong also can't stand the body odor on his body. It's okay if he takes a bath frequently, so the smell is not too serious. But if he doesn't take a bath for more than a week, the body odor will come out. This is a personal physique problem, and there is really nothing he can do about it. Just after Yu said this, everyone raised their armpits and secretly smelled the smell on their bodies. They even couldn't help but. They hadn't taken a shower for dozens of days, so they should stay away from Su. No, it's my fault.
I'm vomiting.
Su waved her hands quickly and retched a few times. I haven't had breakfast this morning, and my stomach feels a little uncomfortable. I'll go next door to run the water for you to take a bath. After saying that, Su turned and went into the kitchen. Under her mother's puzzled eyes, she opened the refrigerator and took out a caterpillar bread. Then she lowered her head and walked out of the yard. She ran to the right side of her villa, pried open the door of the unused villa, went up to the second floor, found an empty bedroom, and started draining water. With her current ability, Simply draining water was enough to meet the needs of these dozen or 20 Special Forces soldiers. Is there water for bathing? There's not enough water for food. How can there be water for bathing? In the Sioux family yard, the boys were in a mess like fried chicken in a chicken coop. Some were excited, some were skeptical, and some were reluctant. At this moment, Father Sioux stood up and comforted you and the others. Yes, yes, we have more water than we can use up. Just wash with confidence. This is the true story. Ever since Sioux told her parents that she had water powers, all the bottles and jars in the house were filled with water. Sometimes, when Sioux's mother wanted to find an empty basin to wash vegetables, she would have to look for a long time. Over time, Sioux's father and mother became very casual about water. Sioux's father even planned to build a water tank on the roof of the villa, but he was busy building the wall these 2 days and did not put the water tank issue on the agenda. After hearing what Sioux's father said, the others didn't try to find out why. The worst that could happen was that someone in the Sioux family had activated the water-related superpower. There were 20 of them in their group, and except for 2 who turned into zombies and died into city, the remaining 18 people were all superpowered people. Superpowers were not uncommon for them. However, there was no water-type superpower among the 18 people. It was unclear why. Perhaps they had been on the battlefield for years, or they were always risking their lives. The only water-type superpower among the 18 people mutated just a few days after awakening his water-type superpower. They mutated and became fog users. From then on, when the Special Forces wanted to drink water, they had to stick out their tongues and feel the wetness of the fog. Until they met Li Ying, who was also a water user, but the little water she could release was not enough for everyone to drink, let alone take a bath. Knock, knock, knock. Before the bathtub was half full, there was a knock on the bathroom door. Sioux was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, with one hand in the bathtub and the other hand eating caterpillar bread. She tilted her head and saw a fair-skinned girl with long, smooth hair standing by the door with a gentle smile. She asked with a smile, "Hello, my name is Li Ying. I'm a water-based psychic. Do you need my help?" Sioux hesitantly looked at the girl named Li Ying by the door. She was about 20 years old, with fair and moist skin. From her appearance, she was definitely a water-based psychic. People whose water-based psychics have been activated have one characteristic. Their skin is incredibly good because of the nourishment of water energy. The higher the level of water-based psychics, the better the skin. For water-based psychics like Sioux, their skin is like a boiled egg, tender and smooth. But Sioux hesitated, not because of whether Li Ying was a water-based mutant, but because she was thinking that the cars were too messy and there were many people getting off the cars. It seemed that she saw Li Ying and a young man standing at the end of the convoy. They were not the survivors outside the villa, but we followed Brother Yi and the others to escape from the city. As if she saw Sioux doubt, Li Ying took off her down jacket, rolled up the sleeves of her warm clothes, and put one hand into the bathtub.
She was shocked.
She was not surprised that Sioux was also a water-based superpower, but she was surprised that Sioux could release such a large tank of water. But she didn't say anything, just did what she should do and released the water she should release. By the way, she chatted with Sioux. "I found out that I could release water before the end of the world, but the city had already been under martial law at that time. My friend's name is Wang Jun. After the city was closed to traffic, he walked into the city to find me. He is also a superpower who can instantly shape the soil into the shape he wants. That's how we survived the first few days. Later, we met Brother Yi and his friends, and followed them to escape from the city."
Oh.
Sioux nodded and continued to pour her own water. She noticed that when Li Ying was talking about Wang Jun, she seemed to be deliberately emphasizing that she and Wang Jun were just friends. Bates, Bang Yun? Sioux seemed to have heard of the names of Li Ying and Wang Jun. Why did these 2 names sound so familiar? Your boyfriend walked into the city to look for you. It seems that this matter was even reported in the newspaper. Really? Li Ying lowered her head and sat on the edge of the bathtub. She couldn't hold back tears in her eyes, but she still smiled and said, "It's my fault. I separated him from his parents. I don't know if he can see his parents again in this life. In the end of the world, Families are separated and broken up. These sad stories can happen to everyone. Su is not surprised because Li Ying was brought into the villa area by Yi Yu and others. So she didn't say anything to drive Li Ying and Wang Jun away. She just listened to Li Ying's chattering and silently let her drink. By the way, are you and brother Yu related? Li Ying has been observing Su secretly. At first, Li Ying felt that a girl like Su, who looked like Lin Daiyu, who was ignorant of the world and frail, was the kind of person who could be easily controlled. But after a few words, Li Ying saw that Su was a water-based mutant, and her abilities were far superior to hers. She was a very quiet person, and after all this, Li Ying didn't know any information about Su's identity. So Li Ying could only ask proactively, while Su smiled and asked in a somewhat ambiguous tone, "You said I'm his relative?" That's not the case. Li Ying felt a little curious about what Su meant, but she still said honestly, "Brother Yi only said that he was going back to Xiangqing to find him."
Sister.
In fact, Li Ying and Wang Jun joined Yi Yu's team halfway. They had experienced life and death together with Yi Yu's team, but they did not open up to each other. Li Ying had never spoken to Yi Yu, and Yi Yu did not like to talk to girls. The only information about Yi Yu was obtained by Wang Jun. Although Yi Yu's team did not publicly announce who the captain or leader was, Li Ying could still see that their style was to respect strength, meaning whoever was the most powerful in the team would be listened to by the rest. Currently, Yi Yu was the most powerful in the team, and the person Li Ying wanted to get close to was not just Yi Yu. To put it bluntly, she was attracted by Yi Yu's ability and Yi Yu's team, a special team whose members all had their superpowers activated. If she could join this team and gain their recognition, how much help would that be in the end times? So the route Li Ying was taking now was the route of conquest by appeasement. First, she conquered the people around Yi Yu, gained his recognition, and then successfully gained the recognition of everyone in this team. Li Ying tried her best to leave a good impression on Su, but Su was very wary. After all, she had been in the apocalypse for 12 years. Someone who suddenly showed up with goodwill looked weird. Su remained calm and watched the situation develop, letting Li Ying talk alone. Then, after filling the bathtub with water, Su walked out of the bathroom. Outside the door, Yi was the first to take off his clothes except for a pair of boxer shorts, holding his dirty clothes and waiting. Behind him stood a long line of Special Forces soldiers, all of whom were eager to take off their clothes. Of course, considering the presence of ladies, they were still very restrained and left a pair of shorts on their buttocks. When they saw Su and Li Ying coming out, they immediately stood at attention and saluted. Yi smiled at Su and walked past her into the guest room. The King Kong behind him clenched his armpits and said to Su and Li Ying in a flattering manner, "Two ladies, you can go down. Thank you for the water." "You're welcome." Actually, most of it was put there by Su. "The little water I have is not enough for you to wash your faces." Li Ying waved her hand. Seeing Su accept it calmly and go downstairs without saying a word, she followed her downstairs. After leaving the villa, Su walked back to her own yard and saw Li Ying's friend, the one named Wang Jun, who had spontaneously stood outside the yard and started to help Su's father build a wall. Li Xiaoyu and the two policemen were also helping. Su just glanced at them and went into the kitchen to find something to eat. "Ouch! You're messing with me." Amid the lively chickens, ducks, and pigs, Su's mother was stepping on a bag of sweet potatoes with a headache, looking for a place to rest. Su stood on a bag of rice, opened the refrigerator, found a can of corn, opened the lid of the can, yawned, turned to Su's mother, and said, "Mom, you cook. I'll go back to my room and sleep. I'll go out for some exercise in the evening." "Hey,
Shushu, don't go."
Mom has something to ask you. Su's mother was holding a knife and was about to chase Su to ask her what was wrong with her recently. Why was she not afraid of killing zombies and was vomiting all the time? She was a little worried, but she was stepping on a chicken. The chicken struggled and screamed crazily, scaring Su's mother so much that she immediately retracted her foot, and the little idea in her mind was also scared back. How is it possible? What kind of world is this? How can I have a child? While talking to herself, Sue's mother dismissed the idea in her mind, picked up the knife, and walked to the sink with great difficulty on the ground. She took the ladle and looked down at the big bucket of water beside the sink. She felt inexplicably uncomfortable, thinking that if her Sue was pregnant, how could she give birth to the child in the future? In the end times, everyone was in danger. Would you care about them? Oh, her poor Sue. Sue's mother was angry and yelled at Sue's father outside the yard. I say, old man, how many times have you said to connect clean water to the faucet for me? Did you do it? Did you do it? Every time I wash vegetables, it's so inconvenient. I'm so angry. Men are all bad. They only know how to hurt women and tire women. Ada Ewan %%. Muttering and complaining non-stop. Father Sue had long been accustomed to Mother Sue's nagging every day for 10 years. He continued to build his wall nonchalantly and waited for Yu to finish a shower so that he could have a good chat with him about the outside world. Sue, who was in the bedroom on the second floor, had already drawn the curtains, changed into a clean set of pajamas, and snuggled into the warm and comfortable house, falling into a deep sleep. She was awakened by the laughter outside the courtyard downstairs. In the dark room, Sue opened her eyes and could hear the men's noises from time to time. She looked at her watch and saw the time. It was 10 o'clock in the evening. Hadn't these people been running around for many days? They finally settled down, so why didn't they go to sleep? Sue also felt a little hungry at this moment, so she simply sat up and stopped sleeping. She put on the down jacket beside the bed, put on her slippers, and opened the curtains. The starlight and the lights outside the yard instantly filled her room. Sue walked to the balcony and looked down. There were 2 large round tables on such a small road. There were electric wires above the round tables, and there were several bright light bulbs on the wires. The light bulbs were powered by Sue's hydroelectric generators. Those young men sat at the round table, eating meat and drinking wine with big mouths.